Chapter 327. The princess's residence was very efficient. As soon as Junzi Mei walked out of the residence, the carriage to enter the palace was already prepared. Thinking that something big had happened, Junzi Mei didn't stay any longer and immediately ordered the servants to drive into the palace. Inside the Junlan Palace, Junzi Xing played with two luminous pearls in his hands, but his mood wasn't on them. His gaze was deep as if he was thinking about something. At this moment, a servant entered the hall to report. "Your Majesty, the princess requests an audience." In the palace, one didn't need to report any title to know who the princess was. Only Junzi Mei had this privilege in Junlan. When the previous emperor passed away, the other princesses and princes in the palace died due to some inexplicable illnesses, accidents, or untimely deaths. There were many strange coincidences during this period. It was impossible to explain clearly in a few words. Now, among the previous emperor's children, only Junzi Mei was left except for Junzi Sheng. Let the princess in." Junzi Sheng smiled when he heard this. She was Junzi Sheng's only family member left in the palace, so he doted on her a lot. When he heard that she was here, he was in a good mood. "Imperial brother, I heard that you were looking for me." Her voice reached him before she arrived. "Why are you still so noisy? You're already so old." Junzi Sheng deliberately scolded her with a straight face. Junzi Mei heard her imperial brother's scolding as soon as she entered. She felt wronged. "Imperial brother, don't scold me as soon as you come. I'm already so old. Shouldn't you give me some face?" Junzi Sheng laughed and shook his head. "Oh you know that you've already grown up. You should act like a princess. Don't be so jumpy. Isn't it good for me to be like this?" Junzi Mei was a little angry. "Don't tell me I have to be like those beauties in the harem who are all silly and pretending to be reserved. Which one of them isn't ambitious and wants to pretend to be a white lotus? Imperial brother, I'm telling you, don't arrange any instructors or nannies for me. I've had enough. Women in Junlan should live freely and freely." Junzi Shenghu glanced at her and said, "I only said one sentence, but you refuted so much. If Imperial Father was still alive, he would have had your mouth sewn shut. TSK, Imperial Father wouldn't be willing to do that to me." Junzi Mei snorted. He knew that his father had always doted on her. Ignoring this topic, Junzi Sheng smelled the scent in the air and frowned slightly. "Zimei, did you drink tonight?" Hearing this, Junzi Mei felt a little guilty. If she had known earlier, she would have changed her clothes and come again. However, she thought that her imperial brother had something urgent to attend to, so she didn't care about anything else. She only scattered some pollen on the road, but she didn't expect that it still didn't escape her imperial brother's nose. She coughed lightly and nodded. "I drank a little." Then she immediately changed the topic. "Imperial brother, didn't you call me over because you have something important to tell me? What is it?" Junzi Mei's excuse to change the topic was not very clever. How could Junzi Sheng not see it? However, he did not have time to care about her drinking at this time. After all, what he was going to tell her next was more important. "Zimei, you're already 16 years old. Women in Junlan will start looking for a husband when they become of marriageable age at 15. Last year, Imperial Father was critically ill and couldn't take care of you. However, you also said that you weren't in a hurry. Now that Imperial Father is no longer here, your eldest brother is like a father. It's time for me to take care of this important matter in your life." Junzi Sheng looked at his slender and elegant younger sister in front of him and suddenly felt as if he had a younger sister who had just grown up. "I don't know if there's a man you like, or rather, what kind of man do you want to be your husband? Your imperial brother can make the decision for you," Junzi Sheng said with a smile. When she heard this, Junzi Mei's face immediately flushed a little because a person's appearance appeared in her mind. Her heart thumped wildly, as if there was a little rabbit in it. It made her heart beat faster. In the princess's residence. As soon as Chu Qingyan entered the courtyard, she saw Yen Luo leaning against a stone pillar at a glance. How was it? Cheng Yenluo heard footsteps and turned to look at her with a hint of interest. With this princess consort's glib tongue, I'll definitely make her speechless and surrender. Chu Qingyan shrugged and replied casually. Cheng Yenluo gave her a thumbs up. Well done. Of course. Chu Qingyan tugged at the corner of her mouth. Cheng Yenluo's gaze fell on Chu Qingyan's dim eyes and she withdrew her hand with some confusion. What's wrong? Were you bullied? Sister Yenluo, which eye of yours saw me being bullied? Chu Qingyan put aside her worries and raised her eyebrows at Cheng Yenluo. Then it seems like there's something on your mind. Cheng Yenluo suddenly became excited. Quick, tell me. Why did this person look like she was taking pleasure in her misfortune? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes, not wanting to bother with her. Cheng Yenluo chuckled when she saw this. I know even if you don't say it. You're worried about your big ice cube's health. Am I right? She didn't deny it. After being detained in the princess residence yesterday, she hadn't stopped worrying for a moment. In her heart, every day that they were delayed was equivalent to wasting a day of Big Ice Cube's life. She had asked Huling and he said that the princess residence was heavily guarded. With their abilities, it wouldn't be difficult to escape. However, it would be difficult to attract the attention of the Junlan Kingdom and attract pursuers. Coupled with the enemies of the Sichuan Kingdom, the journey would be even more difficult. She had been worried that the road to the Jiang Kingdom would change, but she didn't want to be surrounded by disasters. Chu Qingyan leaned against the stone pillar with a blank expression. Sister Yenluo, I'm scared. Don't be afraid. Even if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. Let nature take its course. Cheng Yenluo sighed and reached out to pat her shoulder. Chu Qingyan forced a smile. Hopefully, that would be the case. I'm going to grind some medicine. You stay here and don't think too much. Cheng Yenluo remembered that she still had medicine to develop. She reminded her a few more times before leaving. Not long after Cheng Yenluo left, Ethereal's figure appeared in the corridor. Chu Qingyan called out to him. Ethereal glanced around her, but to no avail. He bowed in disappointment. Little Princess Consort. Chu Qingyan read his mind and smiled. You're looking for Sister Yenluo, right? She's gone to grind the medicine. Ethereal smiled. Thank you, Little Princess Consort. Chu Qingyan watched Ethereal's figure leave quickly. She couldn't help but smile faintly. These two enemies were chasing each other. It was quite lively. She glanced at the night sky again. Her mood was dull, so she turned around and opened the door. When she returned to the room, she saw a black shadow on the floor. She thought that Big Ice Cube was worried about her and had ordered Turin to come. Hence, she didn't think too much and said, What did His Highness ask you to say? I've been very obedient. I didn't cause any trouble. Very obedient? You didn't cause any trouble. A deep and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Qingyan was slightly taken aback. Then, she looked pleasantly surprised. Chapter 328. Big Ice Cube. Chu Qingyan was surprised to see him here and hurried over. Aren't you being watched? How can you walk around as you please? She looked up, both happy and worried. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow in front of him and seemed to be chuckling. Although this prince can't use martial arts now, it doesn't mean that I can be restrained. Junmei wasn't in the residence, so there was nowhere he couldn't go except out of the residence. Chu Qingyan replied in a low voice. He looked alive under the candlelight, unlike the person lying in a pool of blood in her dreams who couldn't be woken up no matter how hard she tried. He was keenly aware of her low spirits. If it was any other day, she would have already pounced on him. However, she was suppressing her emotions today and didn't dare to look into his eyes. He turned and sat down in her room, beckoning her over. Come here. Chu Qingyan hesitated for a moment before slowly moving over. Xiao Su didn't rush her and let her go. Tell me, what are you thinking about? He only spoke softly when the little tortoise moved to his side. The little fellow was acting a little strange. He was sitting while she was standing, so they were looking at each other at the same level. I'm not thinking about anything. Chu Qingyan forced a smile. Your smile is too fake. You can choose not to smile. Xiao Su exposed her mercilessly. Chu Qingyan was discouraged. With this big ice cube around, she didn't even need to pretend anymore. She took a step back and tried to calm down before looking up at him. Maybe I'm not used to the environment here. You don't have to worry. Xiao Su didn't believe her and pulled her in front of him. He frowned and wanted to tell her if there was something wrong, but when he saw her reddened eyes, he compromised. Are you afraid? Afraid? She heard Yan Luo say this to her tonight, and now she heard the big ice cube say it to her. Was she that obvious? She wanted to hypnotize herself, but the uneasiness in her heart was aroused again. She couldn't help but wrap her arms around his neck and press her forehead against his neck. She didn't dare to admit the strong worry and fear in her heart. Yes. She was afraid. He was afraid that he would be trapped in the princess's residence and could not escape. If he was lucky enough to escape from the princess's mansion, he was afraid that some tigers and wolves would appear on his way to the Jiang kingdom. If they reached the Jiang nation safely, they might not be able to obtain the ice crystal flower. What if he successfully obtained the ice crystal flower, but was afraid that the passionless grass was nowhere to be found? She couldn't be blamed for thinking too much. She didn't want to think so much, but she had to. Xiao Su couldn't ask what she was thinking at this time, so he could only reach out his hand and gently stroke her back, letting her hug him tightly. If this could comfort her, then so be it. Am I stupid? She asked after a moment of silence. There's no such thing as a fool on my men, he replied domineeringly. Shall I be a burden to you? She asked again. Are you itching for a beating? Xiao Su frowned and asked. No. Her face was pressed against his shoulder, her voice muffled. I won't do it again. He thought she was telling him that she would stop fooling around. I won't do it again. I won't be a burden to you anymore. And I won't be used by others to threaten you. In the Junlan Imperial Palace. The conversation between the brother and sister was still going on. Brother, I thought you knew. Although Junmei's face was red, there was no shyness in her tone. Junzi Sheng was a little surprised when he heard this. Are you referring to the war god of Sichuan, the king of England, Xiao Su? Junmei admitted openly with the shyness of a young girl on her face. You haven't mentioned him in the past 6 months. I thought you had forgotten about him, but I didn't expect that you. Junzi Sheng didn't continue. Brother, just because I didn't mention him doesn't mean that I don't like him. In the past 6 months, she had put in a lot of effort to plant people in Sichuan just to find out about him. Now that she had succeeded, it proved that everything she had done was worth it. Junzi Sheng sighed. Xiao Su is second to none in terms of ability and talent. It's just that I've told you a long time ago that you can't control someone like him. Moreover, I don't think highly of his status in Sichuan. If you marry him, you'll only harm yourself. Moreover, his whereabouts have been unknown recently. Maybe he's been framed. As soon as he finished speaking, Junmei retorted, Brother, you're looking down on me too much. If I meet him, I just need some time, and he'll definitely fall head over heels for me. Junmei made a solemn vow. Junzi Sheng frowned, but quickly relaxed. Junmei, I know you've always admired hot-blooded men, but Xiao Su isn't a good match for you. When Imperial Father was still alive, I promised him that I would carefully select a good man with a family background similar to yours. He won't be any worse than Xiao Su. Junmei didn't take her brother's advice seriously. After returning from the battlefield, her brother knew that she liked Xiao Su. He would often earnestly persuade her, and she was tired of listening to him. I don't believe there's anyone better than Xiao Su in this world. Junzi Sheng smiled. How could there not be? Today, the court officials mentioned this matter. The Nansang Crown Prince is a man of striking appearance, skilled in both civil and military matters. When he was young, he trained in the army. He's brave and skilled in battle. Everyone in Nansang praises him as a good man. Many women adore him. Now that he's at the age of choosing a consort, he's a good match for you. If the two of you can marry, it'll be a wonderful thing. I'll be relieved. The Nansang Crown Prince. Junmei narrowed her eyes. She looked at her brother with suspicion and disbelief. Brother, are you planning to sacrifice your sister for a marriage alliance? Princess, how can you say that about His Majesty? His Majesty has good intentions. The palace steward standing to the side couldn't help but explain for his master. Junmei snorted. Brother, if you didn't want to consolidate your position, how could you be willing to send your sister to that poor and backward country? Junzi Sheng was angry. Junmei, don't talk nonsense. How could I sacrifice your marriage to consolidate my position? Besides, Nansang isn't the Nansang kingdom of the past. Its national strength isn't inferior to Sichuan and Junlan. Humph, brother, don't say any more. If you're talking about this important matter tonight, then I don't think there's anything to say. In any case, I won't agree. Junmei flicked her sleeves and left the hall. Princess. The palace steward cried out, but she was already far away. No need to chase her. Junzi Sheng's anger was swept away, and his expression returned to normal. Yes. I think the person detained in the princess's residence is Xiao Su. Go investigate. Just now, when he used the news of Xiao Su's whereabouts to test his sister, she didn't show the slightest bit of worry. This proved that she knew his whereabouts. Yes, this subordinate will do it right away. Junzi Sheng stroked his chin and smiled meaningfully. Xiao Su, it would be great if you were in Junlan. Chapter 329. The little fellow lay on his body for a long time, but she didn't say why. Xiao Su felt that it was because he spoiled her too much, which led to her being so fearless. Big Ice Cube, when can we leave this place? Chu Qingyan got off his body and asked after calming down. Soon. He patted her head, indicating that she shouldn't worry. Big Ice Cube's words had always been her stimulant. As long as he said it, she would believe it. Big Ice Cube, go back and rest. Your body should rest more. Chu Qingyan pushed him, making him get up. Xiao Su got up and bowed. You also have a good sleep. I will. Chu Qingyan nodded seriously. This prince will leave after watching you sleep. Xiao Su said lightly. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but feel that the big ice cube had more and more potential to take care of people. If he had children in the future, he would probably be so meticulous. I will sleep by myself. Hurry, if you don't go to sleep, I will add 10 more big words. He only knew how to threaten people. If it wasn't a carrot, it was a punishment to write big words. She hated carrots the most in her life. But who asked him to be the boss? So Chu Qingyan obediently lay down on the bed. Xiao Su sat by the bed and helped her tuck in the blanket. Big Ice Cube, close your eyes and sleep. Oh. After she obediently closed her eyes, she still wanted to complain in her heart, but she suddenly fell into darkness. He quickly lost consciousness. His hand left her temple. Xiao Su looked at her deeply. Although she didn't say it, he couldn't not know that she hadn't slept well for a long time. In the carriage, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep. In the princess residence, it was still the same. A faint green color had already appeared under her eyes. The person who was supposed to be growing was worried and restless. When he saw her at the pavilion today, he was a little worried, so he appeared in her room tonight. She should have a good sleep. After leaving the room, Xining stood there quietly. If there's nothing else, let your master sleep until she wakes up naturally, he instructed. Yes. Xining agreed without any surprise. Whether it was in the Wang Fu or on the road, she had heard many of His Highness's instructions. Xiao Su slowly walked back to his room step by step. Just now, when the little fellow asked him when he could leave, he answered quickly. He wasn't lying to her. His appearance in Junlan would attract Jun Juanxing's attention sooner or later. He didn't reveal too much to her because he was worried that the little fellow would overthink things. Since barging into the princess's residence would attract everyone's attention, it would be better to strike first and wait for him to come. Even if they would be discovered in the end, they might as well take back the initiative in the meantime. The only reason he tolerated Youngmei was because he was waiting for the right opportunity. However, if it would cause the little fellow to worry, he might as well take the initiative to attack. Tell Junzi Sheng that I'll be waiting for him here. Yes. The night slowly deepened. A carriage that came out of the palace was heading towards the princess's residence at lightning speed. The carriage quickly stopped at the gate of the residence. Youngmei got out of the carriage with an angry face. Nanny Yi and the maids who came to greet her saw her unhappy face and didn't dare to say anything. They silently followed behind her. When she entered the room, Zheng Mai's anger exploded. She kicked the vase at her feet and walked to the table. She reached out and pulled the cloth. All the bottles and jars fell to the ground. She pulled out the sword on the wall and vented her anger on the screen and curtains in the room. Immediately, feathers flew everywhere. Nothing in the room was intact. Nanny Yi and the others were shocked. It was rare to see the princess so angry. However, seeing that the princess was angry, no one dared to stop her. They only hoped that she would calm down soon. After venting her anger, Youngmei threw down the sword and threw herself on the table. She began to cry. Her voice was mournful and heartbroken. Only then did Nanny Yi dare to ask, "Princess, what happened?" "Imperial brother wants me to marry that vicious Nansang crown prince. He says it's for my own good. Isn't it for the marriage alliance with Nansang Kingdom to strengthen his power?" Youngmei viciously accused. Nanny Yi was also surprised. However, she felt that His Majesty's decision was very wise. However, she didn't dare to touch her master's reverse scale. "Princess, don't be sad. His Majesty loves you so much. He wouldn't have the heart to ignore your wishes. Perhaps he really thinks that Nansang Crown Prince is good, so he asked you." Youngmei hesitated. She looked up at Nanny Yi. "Is what you said true?" Seeing that the princess was willing to listen, Nanny Yi hurriedly said, "Yes. Princess, remember when you were young, you were bullied by Princess Min. It was His Majesty who stood up to protect you and saved you from the cold pond. Because you didn't study seriously, you were punished to reflect on your mistakes. It was His Majesty who secretly sent you food. Have you forgotten?" Hearing Nanny Yi's words, Youngmei recalled how Imperial brother doted on her in the past. Whenever there was something good, he would share it with her. He never monopolized it. Even today, the princess residence that he gave her was the largest residence in the history of princesses. Imperial brother treated her so well. How could she criticize him? "You're right. I was wrong. Imperial brother really treated me well, but I said that he used me. He must be very sad. Tomorrow, I will apologize to him." Youngmei felt guilty. Nanny Yi smiled. "It's good that princess has thought it through." However, Zheng Mai's expression turned solemn. "Today, when Imperial brother mentioned the crown prince of Nansang, I rejected him. However, it's hard to guarantee that the crown prince of Baitsang, Nansang, or Shitsang won't appear next time. In order to prevent this from happening, I must take action. Princess, what do you want to do?" Nanny Yi had a bad feeling. "I've admired Xiao Su for a long time. It's a pity that I can't mention his existence to Imperial brother now. Otherwise, with Imperial brother's judgment, he will definitely not allow me to be with him. However, if the rice is cooked, everything will become a foregone conclusion. Imperial brother has always doted on me. He will not let me suffer. Youngmei didn't care if she would be scolded for being shameless after saying these words. Because in Junlan, one had to take the initiative to get what one wanted. It was the same for marriage. Princess, this. Nanny Yi looked at the princess in shock. She was speechless. Chu Qingyan is right about something. I've placed all my attention on the women around Xiao Su, but I've neglected the most important thing. Then, this time, I'll make sure that Xiao Su can't get rid of me. I want to get his body first. This way, I won't be afraid that I won't be able to get his heart. With Xiao Su's personality, he won't not be responsible for me. When the time comes, even if Imperial brother knows, he can only agree to me. Princess, it's not appropriate for you to do this. Nanny Yi hurriedly advised. Although Junlan's customs were more open than other countries, she was a princess. If this were to be leaked, it would not only damage the royal family's reputation, but also the princess's own reputation. There's no need to persuade me. There's no time like today. Youngmei had made up her mind. Call Sun Qi in. I have something to instruct her to do. Xiao Su, tonight, I will definitely make it unforgettable for you. Chapter 330. The night gradually deepened. In a luxurious and magnificent room, a thin and small figure walked in under the lead of a maid. It was a person hidden in a white cloak. His entire body was covered tightly, and his face could not be seen. Only a pair of eyes could be seen. His gaze seemed to be empty and emotionless. It was as if as long as one looked into his eyes, a cold aura would rush towards them. Princess, I heard that you were looking for me. The voice was neither male nor female, and it was hard to tell if it was real or fake. Junzi Mei turned around. That's right. I have something important to discuss with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Junzi Mei looked at Nanny Yi. Nanny Yi received her gaze and understood. She immediately led all the servants away. When only the two of them were left in the room, Junzi Mei walked in front of him and spoke. I want the medicine you've newly developed. Sun Qi's voice was calm and he was not surprised. You want to use aphrodisiac? That's right. Junzi Mei did not have the shyness that a woman should have and admitted it generously. This subordinate understands. This medicine needs to be prepared on the spot to achieve the best effect. This subordinate will prepare the medicine first, Sun Qi replied. He did not ask who this medicine was for, because dirty things were never uncommon in the royal family. And this aphrodisiac was the most potent medicine he had studied so far. It was also the least harmful to the body and had the best aphrodisiac effect. Okay, how long do you need? An hour. Okay, I'll wait for you. You may leave. Yes. After Sun Qi left, Junzi Mei sat on the chair, feeling slightly shy. She had missed him for 2 years, and he was finally here. Junzi Mei reached out and touched her face. She had grown up and was no longer the little girl back then. She could finally become his woman. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and summoned Nanny Yi. Princess, you called for me. Nanny Yi came in. Yes, I want to bathe and change my clothes. Also, order someone to go down and tell the King of England that I have something important to discuss with him in an hour. Junzi Mei's eyes were like water. It was as if her heart could not help but beat faster at the mention of him. Nanny Yi originally wanted to persuade her to think twice before acting. Unfortunately, when she saw that her princess was already deeply in love and was worried that she would be scolded instead of persuading her, she gave up on that thought and went to prepare in a low voice. In the Luoyan courtyard, Xiao Su received the servant's notice and raised his eyebrows slightly. Go and report to the princess that it's already late. We'll talk tomorrow. The maid smiled and said, My princess said that this matter is very urgent. It concerns your highness leaving Junlan. If we miss the opportunity, she might change her mind one day. Xiao Su pondered for a moment and finally agreed. This prince will wait for her. Yes. The maid left with a smile. After the princess left, Turin stepped forward and asked with a puzzled expression, "Master, why do I feel that the princess didn't come here with good intentions in mind? It doesn't matter if she has good intentions or not. Since she has brought it up, then this prince will make things clear to her. It would be best if she can let us leave. If she can't, then we will act according to the original plan," said Xiao Su calmly. He originally wanted to wait for Jun Zixing to find him, but this move of his was dangerous. If Jun Zixing found out about his whereabouts, he was afraid that he would be held back for some time. However, if Jun Zixing was willing to let them leave, that would be the fastest shortcut. He felt that regardless of whether he succeeded or not, tonight might be a turning point. Sun Qi returned to his medicine refining room. After closing the door, there was only a slightly bright oil lamp inside. "You're back." A low coughing and panting voice sounded. Sun Qi turned around and looked at the person lying on the bed. He chuckled softly. "Junior sister, do you know what news I received when I went to see the princess just now?" "What news?" The person on the bed coughed slowly and asked. "Eldest senior brother's good daughter and good disciple have been detained in the residence by the princess." Sun Qi clasped his hands behind his back and smiled creepily. The person on the bed was slightly stunned. Then, she revealed a hint of hatred that did not match her delicate face. "That's really good news. Then, what does ninth senior brother plan to do?" Back then, Master favored eldest senior brother and wanted to pass on the sect to him wholeheartedly. He had never treated us fairly. Back then, because we stole a medical book, eldest senior brother reported us and chased us out of the sect. Then, we began to wander the pugilistic world and lived a wandering life. If it weren't for eldest senior brother, how could we have ended up like this today? Although his whereabouts are unknown, a father's debt must be paid by his son. Since his daughter and disciple are here, then a debt of blood must be paid in blood. Sun Qi smiled coldly. The princess wants to drug Sichuan King of England. We'll beat her at her own game and take the opportunity to poison his good daughter and good disciple. At this point, he lowered his head and caressed the face on the bed. "It's just that I'll have to wrong you. From today onwards, you'll have to run for your life again. The princess's residence is just a temporary habitat. Princess Zime is vicious and not easy to work with. Sooner or later, she'll have to leave. It's my body that's causing you trouble." The woman on the bed sighed. "You don't have to blame yourself. I've never treated you as a burden," Sun Qi said gently. However, his tone changed and instantly turned cold. "Junior sister, what kind of death do you think I'll give his good daughter?" "Naturally, she'll be unable to live or die." The woman on the bed gritted her teeth. "Ha, good idea. Didn't I develop another medicine recently called the Joyous Dove? It's even stronger than ordinary aphrodisiacs. However, it's not a simple aphrodisiac, but a fatal poison. When a man and a woman have sex, the poison will take effect. Moreover, I heard that these two people don't like each other. When the poison takes effect, the person will wake up. That'll truly be unable to live or die." Sun Qi's laughter was very low, so low that it made people shudder. "Senior brother, good plan," the woman on the bed said with a smile. "Rest well first. I'll come and take you away later." A silver needle appeared on Sun Qi's fingertip and pierced into her acupuncture point to help her fall asleep. Okay. She had already fallen asleep. Sun Qi turned around and walked to his medicine cabinet, beginning to search for the herbs he wanted. An hour passed very quickly. He had already developed 2 types of medicine. He summoned a maidservant. "Give this box of medicine to the princess. Tell her that this pill will melt when it enters water, but if it's ignited, the effect will be even better." "Yes." The maidservant left. Sun Qi looked at the other box of medicine on the table and smiled coldly. He put it into his sleeve and quietly left. On the other side, Junzi-mei received the medicine box from the maidservant and also heard Sun Qi's instructions from the maidservant. She nodded thoughtfully. Nanny, help me put on makeup. Junzi-mei sat in front of the dressing table and smiled kindly. Nanny Yi went forward and picked up a comb to help Junzi-mei comb her long hair that had just been dried. Princess, what kind of hairstyle do you want? Flying immortal bun. Back then, when she had disguised herself as a woman to look for him, she had combed her hair in that kind of bun. Therefore, she wanted to see if she could recall the bits and pieces of the two of them back then, just like when they first met. Princess, your makeup is done. Nanny Yi removed the eyebrow pencil and smiled. Princess is born beautiful. It doesn't matter whether you put on makeup or not. Junzi-mei pursed the rouge on her lips and smiled gently. Let's go to Luoyan courtyard. Chapter 331. In the Luoyan courtyard. Xiaosu held a book in his hand as he sat on a chair and read it seriously. Suddenly, a series of footsteps approached the room. His eyes moved, but he didn't react. He continued to flip through his book. After a while, there was a light knock on the door. Your Highness, our princess has arrived, a maid reported through the door. Come in. Xiaosu had just put down his book when the door opened. The first one to enter was not Junmei, but her two maids. Junmei waited until the two maids stood on either side of her before she stepped over the threshold. She was wearing a fox fur cloak, and her entire body was covered in frost. After entering, she casually untied her cloak, and one of the maids took it from her and stood there quietly. Mingyue, set the table, Junmei ordered. Yes. A maid stepped forward and lifted the food box in her hand. She took out the pastries and sake and placed them on the table. Another maid took an incense burner and lit it before placing it beside the candlestick. Junmei glanced at the incense burner and a strange smile appeared in her eyes. Then she waved her hand and said, You may all leave. I have important matters to discuss with the King of England. Do not disturb me unless instructed. Yes. All the maids retreated. Xiaosu sat on the chair like this. After watching Junzi-mei toss and turn, he spoke unhurriedly, Princess, you sent someone to inform me that you wanted to discuss this prince's departure from Junlan. You can speak now. Junmei smiled and walked up slowly. Your Highness, there's no hurry. It's such a good night with warm wine and side dishes. Why don't we talk while eating? Xiaosu looked at her deeply. I hope the princess won't play any tricks. Why would I? Junmei smiled innocently. Although Zimei used unusual means to invite you and your subordinates into the residence, I didn't treat you badly. Xiaosu didn't reply. Junzi-mei continued, Your Highness, you don't know, but ever since we parted on the Luoyan slope that day, Zimei has missed you very much. If we don't use this method, I'm afraid we won't be able to meet again in this life. If there's anything I don't do well, I hope your Highness can forgive me. Xiaosu glanced at the snacks and sake on the table and said calmly, If you want to apologize, this prince has already received it. Now, we can get to the point. Junzi-mei cursed in her heart. Why was this person so stubborn? However, she quickly calmed down because now was not the time to debate with him. What she needed was time. After he was drugged, it would be a different scene. Today, she deliberately wore a long red gauze dress. The heater in the room dispelled the cold. Even if she wore a thin gauze dress, she didn't feel cold. She walked gracefully to the table and sat down. She twisted her waist charmingly and her eyes were glued to Xiaosu's body. She reached out to take the wine pot. The sleeves were made of hollow patterns. When she raised her hand, the gauze slid down to her small arm, revealing a large area of glowing jade skin. The patterns on her elbow were faintly discernible, and one could see the white jade skin under her clothes. The most beautiful words of love were said without hesitation. And the most beautiful seduction was half hidden and half exposed. She poured 2 full cups of wine, pushing one in front of him and keeping the other in her hand. She smiled brightly. Her face wasn't as infatuated as before, but the natural and unrestrained manner of a princess. Your Highness, it's fate that we met. Perhaps after today's meeting, there won't be another day. This cup is for you being merciful back then and not making things difficult for me. 2 grabs and 2 releases. He didn't let her embarrass Junlan. Xiao Su looked at her and didn't say anything. Junmei knew what he was worried about. She drank all the wine in the cup and said to him, I didn't poison you. You can rest assured. I entered the palace today. Imperial brother already wants to see the crown prince who betrothed me to Nansung Kingdom. The emperor's words can't be changed, so I can't make things difficult for you to stay in the princess residence. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to send you to the border of Junlan. Your Highness, what do you think? The poison wasn't in the wine, but the wine could be aphrodisiac. Sun Qi had said that when a person was drugged with aphrodisiac, adding a little wine would make it even more enjoyable. She believed that the aphrodisiac fragrance spreading in the air was enough to make him dizzy. This prince wishes princess a good son-in-law. Xiao Su picked up the wine cup. And in this room. Sun Qi had already arrived at the courtyard where Chu Qingyan and the others lived. He had already asked the servants about the location of their rooms. He successfully found Cheng Yenluo's room. At this time, she wasn't there. He walked to the table, and the medicine box in his sleeve slipped into his hand. He opened it and took out the pills inside. Then, he pinched the lid of the incense burner and threw the pills in. Then, he quickly closed it. At this moment, footsteps approached. Without thinking much, he turned and went out through the window. As soon as he went out, Cheng Yenluo pushed open the door. She didn't like to close the window during the day. Now that she was back, the cold wind blew, so she went forward to close it. But as soon as she turned around, she smelled a faint fragrance in the air. Strange, she didn't have any incense. Where did this fragrance come from? Suddenly, she felt a little dizzy. Sun Qi's back was facing Cheng Yenluo's room. He revealed a smug smile, then quickly went to another room. Ethereal was reading a medical book at this moment when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Young Master Ethereal, Miss Cheng wants to see you. A female voice sounded outside the door. When Ethereal heard this, he was a little surprised. Xiaoyan had been ignoring him recently and had never taken the initiative to look for him. Why did she suddenly want to see him tonight? Did she say what she wanted to see me about? Ethereal didn't move and asked hesitantly. Miss Cheng didn't say. She only said that it's up to you whether you want to go or not. The female voice sounded again. This servant will take her leave. Before Ethereal could react, the servant had already left. If someone was outside, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. A person covered up tightly was actually imitating a woman's voice. Ethereal didn't think much and got up to open the door. By this time, the messenger servant was already gone. He sighed inwardly. She ran so fast. However, the weather was really cold. If she didn't run faster, she would die from the cold. He turned around and closed the door, then walked toward Cheng Yenluo's room. Xiaoyan had tormented him all the way here. She didn't even let him rest in the middle of the night. Didn't she know that a man and a woman couldn't be alone in a room? Also, it was the middle of the night. Her sense of crisis was too weak. He had to teach her a lesson in the future. However, as soon as this thought flashed through his mind, his heart twitched slightly. He didn't know if he would have a chance to tell her this in the future. If she still refused to forgive him, he was afraid that after this trip to the Jiang Kingdom, they wouldn't be able to see each other again. He walked to her room with a belly full of thoughts and raised his hand to knock lightly on the door. However, there was no response for a long time. He frowned slightly. The candlelight inside was clearly still lit. Was she not in? Xiaoyan, it's Murongju. Are you in there? He knocked on the door again. Then, he seemed to hear something fall to the ground, followed by a flurry of footsteps coming toward him. Before he could withdraw his hand, the door was already opened. At this moment, before he could see her face clearly, he felt a gust of hot air on his face. A pair of vine-like hands wrapped around his neck. "I've missed you for many years." Murong-ju. Ethereal trembled all over. Chapter 332. Ethereal looked down at the person in his arms in disbelief. She had bright eyes, a face as beautiful as peach blossoms, and willowy eyebrows. "Xiaoyan, you haven't smiled at me like this in a long time." His voice was choked with emotion. The things that he had gotten used to in the past were hard to come by now. He had once asked himself that if he was given another chance, he would definitely cherish her from back then. He would minimize the damage. He would not hate her when they met again in the future. "If you like it, I can smile at you like this every day. How about that?" Cheng Yanluo pressed her face against his chest. Her tone was not as direct and vicious as before. Instead, it was shy like a young girl. Ethereal was a little nervous. "Are you finally willing to forgive me?" For a long time, ever since they had reunited, he had been trying to make up for his mistakes. However, she had always turned a blind eye to him. Just when he was about to lose his courage, she suddenly stopped and waited for him. It was as if everything was not real. "If..." She suddenly smiled, her voice low. Because her voice was too soft, Ethereal's spirit couldn't hear her clearly and couldn't help but lower his body. At this moment, a force pulled him in from outside the door. He wasn't paying attention and was brought into the room by her. Following the sound of the door closing, a domineering declaration sounded at the same time. "If you tonight," she whispered a few words in his ear, and smiled, "I'll forgive you." Ethereal was stunned. Although he had never interacted with a woman after leaving the sect, there was no man who did not understand her words. He was surprised, shocked, and in disbelief. These words actually came out of Xiaoyan's mouth. He suddenly felt that something was wrong with her tonight. He wanted to pull her aside to check on her, but the moment his hands touched her shoulders, he looked down and saw her fingers on his belt. Although his clothes were still intact, he immediately grabbed her fingers and pulled her into his arms. He closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. When he opened his eyes, he asked her, "Xiaoyan, what's wrong with you today?" Cheng Yanluo had completely lost her mind. When she heard his question, she smiled. "I'm fine. I'm just a little hot." Hot. Ethereal felt more and more that something was wrong. However, because her back was facing him, he could not see the expression on her face. As a result, he could not see her mesmerized eyes. "Did you catch a cold?" At this time, Cheng Yanluo was getting impatient. However, her body was restrained by him and she couldn't move. She frowned. On the way to Jiang country, he had been following her without a word. She was getting impatient. She scolded him and he accepted it all. He had never been calculative with her. She had always thought that between the two of them, she was the most domineering. But now, she realized that she couldn't even retaliate when she was in his hands. So, in the past, it was really him who had tolerated her. But that momentary clarity disappeared. "However, you have Zhang Liang's stratagem, I have Liang's ladder." She smiled slyly. He didn't hear a reply from the person in his arms. Although he felt that something was wrong, he didn't care. Instead, he moved his fingers and wanted to take her pulse. She was now speaking incoherently and her body was as hot as a stove. He wanted to see if she was muddle-headed from the fever. If he didn't let her, based on her previous personality, she would never do such a thing even if she was beaten to death. But, just as he was about to feel her pulse, he felt a warm sensation on his cheek. He was startled. His fingers that were about to take her pulse subconsciously loosened slightly. The two hands broke free and easily let go. Xiaoyan, you, senior brother, Ethereal instinctively reached out to grab her. However, when she called out his name, he was stunned. For a long time, he did not hear her call him senior brother. However, after a moment of distraction, he heard the sound of clothes falling to the ground. If he still could not sense that something was wrong, his years of learning medicine would have been in vain. He quickly grabbed her hand and locked it behind her back. His eyes narrowed as he looked around the room. Soon, he noticed an extremely faint sweet smell in the air. This made him somewhat stunned. No wonder he felt that something was wrong with his body. Fortunately, he always carried the spirit-sobering herbs with him. Otherwise, he would have been poisoned. He lowered his head and said solemnly, Xiaoyan, do you know that you've been drugged? What? She acted as if she did not hear him. Ethereal sighed inwardly. She had inhaled too much of the medicinal fragrance. How could she listen to him? Thus, he restrained the struggling Cheng Yenluo with both hands. He quickly walked to the window and opened it. In an instant, a gust of cold wind blew in. At the same time, it blew away the fragrance in the air. He turned around and looked around. Soon, he found the incense burner. He immediately opened the lid and poured in some tea to extinguish it. After dealing with all this, he finally had the mood to deal with the person in his arms. Senior brother, what are you looking at? She asked curiously like a little girl who did not know much about the world. Ethereal looked away and coughed lightly. He avoided the topic and answered, Xiaoyan, wait a moment. I'll cure you of this medicine. Sun Qi thought that no one could cure the medicine he had developed. Moreover, in his eyes, eldest senior brother was honest and loyal. The disciple he had nurtured was only full of the heart of a doctor. He did not understand these unorthodox aphrodisiacs at all. Even if he did, he would not be able to cure the top-grade medicine he had meticulously developed. However, what he did not know was that although Ethereal had studied medicine in the sect, after he left, he had studied all kinds of tricky and strange poisons, including aphrodisiacs. Because he was the Lord's personal doctor, he had to take care of everything. Therefore, because of this, his plan tonight was going to fail. Ethereal's medicine was in the room. He needed to get it, but he was worried about leaving her alone in the room. Hence, he tapped her acupoints and ignored her fiery eyes. He bent down, picked her up, and walked towards his room. Mr. Chu, who was feeding his wife medicine, saw the two of them in the corridor through the window and smiled slyly. Madam Dan, I see someone about to do something bad. You're spouting nonsense again. Mrs. Chu shook her head and laughed. I'm not spouting nonsense, Mr. Chu replied aggrievedly. Wife, you have to believe me. What I said is true. I clearly saw. At this point, Mr. Chu wisely chose to shut up. Hollow and little Yama were both thin-skinned. He could not say it out loud. Otherwise, when they dug a hole in the ground, he would have to help them find a shovel. Wouldn't it be not worth it? However, he was gratified to see them like this. Mrs. Chu looked at her husband's sneaky smile and could not help but shake her head and let him go. After finding the medicine in the room, Ethereal fed it to her. Then, he watched her slowly close her eyes as if she had fallen asleep. It had been a long time since he had seen her so quiet. Kongling raised his hand to cover her face. His gentleness was tinged with pity. Xiaoyan, I won't take advantage of you. Even if I have to, I want you to be willing. Her tightly shut eyes trembled slightly, but eventually returned to normal. At this moment, Turin's voice sounded outside the door. Ethereal, are you there? Chapter 333. Ethereal retracted his hand, glanced at the person on the bed, then turned to leave the room. Why are you here instead of taking care of Master? Ethereal's tone was doubtful. Turin glanced at the disheveled Hualing, his eyes filled with confusion. What are you doing? Hualing followed his gaze and saw that he hadn't tidied up his clothes properly. In order to quickly give Xiao Yan the antidote, he had only casually put on his clothes. Now that Tu Ling had seen him, he gave a low cough before tying his belt. That's not important. Instead, why are you here? Turin didn't ask further. He frowned, his eyes filled with worry. Just now, the princess brought people to Wild Goose Courtyard to look for Master, but she chased everyone out of the courtyard and didn't let anyone near. The courtyard is surrounded by the princess's elite guards. I'm worried that the princess will do something to Master. Ethereal immediately became serious. Master is poisoned and can't use his martial arts. Otherwise, the poison will attack his heart and run amok in his meridians. That would be terrible. That's what I'm worried about too. Turin's face darkened. What's the point of discussing this here? A voice came from the room, and the door opened. Cheng Yenluo stood at the door. Turin glanced at her, then at Ethereal. His expression was very interesting. Did he discover some incredible secret? At this moment, although Ethereal felt a bit awkward, what made him unhappy was that even though Xiao Yan's body had just recovered from the effects of the drug, her rosy cheeks and watery eyes still remained. He didn't want other men to see this side of Xiao Yan. Why did you come out? Hurry and go in. He immediately said. Cheng Yenluo averted her gaze. Why do you care? This isn't my room. What right do you have to let me in? You. Ethereal was at a loss for words. Cheng Yenluo heaved a sigh of relief in her heart and put on a serious expression. Since you're worried about your master, why don't you look for your little princess consort to discuss it instead of being at a loss here? Otherwise, it'll be a waste of time. Turin felt that she was right, so he nodded, turned around, and walked quickly to Chu Qingyan's room. Cheng Yenluo also stepped out of the door and was about to follow Turin when Ethereal stopped her. Xiao Yan, go back to your room and rest. We'll take care of this. My brother-in-law is in trouble. How can I just stand by and watch? Get out of the way. Cheng Yenluo glared at him and said seriously. The corners of Kong Ling's mouth twitched. When did his master become her brother-in-law? But since she was so stubborn, he could only let her be. When they arrived at Chu Qingyan's door, Xining heard the noise and came over. When she saw Turin and the others, she couldn't help but smile. Are you looking for your master so late? But His Highness said that no matter what happens, we're not to disturb Master's rest. Xining, little girl, your master is about to be snatched away. How can she still sleep? Cheng Yenluo patted her shoulder. If anything happens, I'll block it. You open the door. Although Xining was a little confused, she quickly opened the door. In her master's heart, Miss Cheng was a good friend. The moment Cheng Yenluo entered the room, she saw Chu Qingyan sleeping peacefully. She called out to her a few times, but Chu Qingyan did not respond. Frustrated, Cheng Yenluo wanted to rush forward and pull Chu Qingyan out of the blankets, but she was stopped by Kong Ling. Don't call out. Master must have sealed the little princess consort's sleeping acupoint. After saying that, Ethereal gestured for Turin to unseal her acupoint. Cheng Yenluo couldn't help but smile and shake her head. This Xiao Su actually sealed the little girl's sleeping acupoint in order to let her have a good sleep. TSK, 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 Chu Qingyan, whose acupoint had been unsealed, slowly woke up. She sleepily looked at the people in the room and asked in a daze, why are you all here? Little girl, the sky is about to fall. How can you still sleep? Cheng Yenluo took the lead and walked to her bed, almost lifting her up. Chu Qingyan rubbed her eyes. Didn't you say that if the sky falls, there will be tall people to hold it up? You believe this nonsense? Get up quickly. Your big ice cube might not be able to keep his chastity now. Chu Qingyan instantly woke up. Get out, Clothes. She told Turin and Ethereal to get out, while Clothes said to Xining. Cheng Yenluo's words also woke up Turin and Ethereal at the same time. Just now, they thought that Junmei was going to do something to their master, but they didn't think of that. At this moment, they were burning with anxiety. Soon, the door opened again. Chu Qingyan was already dressed and standing in front of them. Standing in front of Chu Qingyan were the four spirits of earth, fire, wood, and space, as well as Jin Xian. Let's go to Luoyan courtyard first. Chu Qingyan didn't ask anything and immediately ordered. She already knew what she should know from Yan Luo. As for what she shouldn't know, she would find out when she got there. Their lightness skills were excellent. Under Turin's guidance, they easily avoided the guards in the princess residence. Soon, they arrived outside Luoyan courtyard. Just as Turin said, half of the guards in the princess residence had surrounded the entire Luoyan courtyard. It could be said that it was watertight. Even a fly could be seen flying in. Ethereal and I will go and check it out first. The rest of you wait and see. Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision. Yes. Everyone responded. This was the best solution at this time. Chu Qingyan walked over with Ethereal. The guard outside the courtyard was the blue-robed officer who had detained them outside the city gate. When he saw Chu Qingyan and her companions coming over, he immediately waved his hand to stop them. Miss, it's late at night. You should go back and rest. I know it's late at night. May I know what you're doing outside His Highness' courtyard? Chu Qingyan asked curiously with an amiable look. The blue-robed officer chuckled. I'm carrying out the princess's orders. I don't know anything else. May I know why you're here so late at night? Chu Qingyan was very disdainful of his joking, but she still had a smile on her face. She blinked and smiled. My lord's health has always been problematic. Every few nights, he needs the accompanying doctor to check his body to make sure he's fine. So tonight, it's time to take his pulse again. So I brought my doctor over. May I know if you can make it convenient? The blue-robed officer flatly rejected. My princess has ordered that no one is allowed to disturb him no matter what. If His Highness is unwell, we will go and find a doctor. I believe that the doctors in our princess residence won't be worse than your people. So please go back first. His tone was firm, not allowing anyone to refuse. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Is there really no way to make an exception? Please go back, miss. If you don't listen to my kind words, then don't blame me for being impolite. Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and looked at him coldly. Chapter 334. What did you say? Looking at the pair of pure eyes that were instantly stained with a cold expression, the charming smile on her face immediately turned icy cold. The aura that emanated from her small body forced him to take a step back. The blue-robed officer was stunned. Then he realized that this person had said something disrespectful and immediately became angry. Chu Qingyan curled her lips and didn't say anything. Instead, she stretched out her leg and kicked the officer. The officer didn't expect her to know martial arts and didn't expect her to suddenly attack. His entire body was kicked back a few steps. Fortunately, his subordinates behind him protected him. You stinky girl, go and capture them all. The blue-robed officer flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared out the order. As soon as he said this, the Shaolai cavalry that followed Xiao Su to Junlan appeared. The soldiers that just came up were pierced by their swords. Kill without mercy. Chu Qingyan coldly ordered. Daring to steal my family's big ice cube, those who block me, kill. Yes. The Shaolai cavalry replied in unison. Their killing intent was like a rainbow. Although there were many soldiers in the princess residence, the Shaolai cavalry's advantage was that each one of them was an elite that could fight against 100. Turin and Hualing opened the path in front and Jin Xian brought up the rear. Chu Qingyan quickly broke through the first line of defense. Although the three of them had never worked together before, they showed a strong tacit understanding at this time. The second line of defense was broken. The door of the Luoyan courtyard was opened by them. But what was aimed at them was a gloomy arrow formation. Chu Qingyan's patience had reached its limit. She snatched the sword from the princess residence's soldier and kicked him away. Then she flew towards the arrow formation. Turan and the other two saw this and quickly followed. At such a close distance, it was impossible to aim at the target. Chu Qingyan took advantage of these people's confusion to cut their bowstrings. Peng, 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 the bowstrings were broken. Don't think that she was a vegetarian during this time. After the big ice cube was poisoned, she had already picked up the swordsmanship that she didn't continue practicing. It was just that she didn't fight, but it didn't mean that she was easy to bully. Chu Qingyan didn't stay any longer and immediately went to the bright room in the courtyard. Turan and the others were surprised by the little princess' progress, but now wasn't the time to sigh. The most important thing was to help the little princess deal with these problems and let her safely go find their master. Jinxin, go and help the young consort. Junmei has been practicing martial arts since she was young. I'm afraid that the young consort is not her match. Tu Ling pulled out the sword from the soldier's body and turned to speak to the people who were trying their best to kill the enemy. All right. Jinxin didn't say anything else and followed behind his master. Of course. Of the room of the Loof. Of the room. Her eyes widened. The moment Chu Qingyan entered the room, she felt a gust of cold wind. She looked over and saw that the curtains were blown up by the wind. Soon, she saw the big ice cube sitting on the chair safe and sound. She sighed in relief and quickly walked over with her sword. Big ice cube, are you okay? She asked worriedly. At this moment, Xiao Su, who had his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes. Apart from his pale lips, there was nothing wrong with him. I'm fine. I used a bit of vital energy and felt a little weak. Looking at the little fellow's worried face, his eyes softened. Chu Qingyan nodded. That's good. Where's Junmei? Wasn't she here? Why didn't she see her? Xiao Su's eyes were cold. On the ground. Chu Qingyan followed his gaze and saw a big roll wrapped in a quilt on the ground. Except for the exposed black hair, it could be said that she was wrapped from head to toe. You tied her up? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. She's too ugly. I can't bear to look at her. So I wrapped her up. Xiao Su's tone was full of disdain. Chu Qingyan felt that the big ice cube, who had a sharp tongue, was too handsome and cute. She liked it. But when she thought of Yan Luo's words, she immediately stopped smiling and looked him up and down. What are you looking at? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. I'm looking to see if you've been taken advantage of. Chu Qingyan pouted. My taste isn't that bad. Xiao Su didn't think much of it. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but want to praise the big ice cube. She liked his sharp tongue very much. At this moment, Jean Xian had dealt with the guards outside and immediately entered the room. Master, what's the situation? Tell the people outside that their princess has been subdued. If they want her to live, they should obediently put down their weapons and stay outside the courtyard. If they dare to report this, they can only wait to collect their princess's corpse. Chu Qingyan blurted out without thinking. Yes. Jean Xian glanced at the person on the ground, then looked at the two people in front of him. He immediately responded and left. After she gave the order, she turned around and met the playful eyes of the people above her. What's wrong? Chu Qingyan touched her face. Could it be that her face was stained with blood? You stole this prince's order. Xiao Su spoke truthfully. Chu Qingyan was embarrassed. I forgot. Xiao Su smiled. But you did well. Chu Qingyan was startled by his serious and teasing tone. She patted his shoulder and said angrily, You scared me. She couldn't help but lean on his shoulder as she wrapped her arms around his neck. She said in a low voice, You scared me to death. I thought that you would be taken advantage of by this trash princess. I thought I would lose you from now on. Feeling the deep fear of the person in his arms, he smiled and hugged her back. Don't be afraid, I'm here. This kind of rising and falling heart was really too torturous. Chu Qingyan sighed faintly. Big ice cube, tie me to your belt in the future. That way, I won't always be frightened. As soon as she said this, she didn't hear his reply. Instead, she heard his chest tremble slightly and the chuckle above her head. It seemed like the big ice cube was in a very good mood. This really wasn't fair. The sounds of fighting outside disappeared and chaotic footsteps could be heard. Chu Qingyan left his body and stood to the side. There were more important things to take care of right now. They didn't have time to reminisce. Turin, Huling, and the others entered the room. Master, are you all right? Everyone asked in unison. I'm fine. Xiao Su's tone was calm. Seeing that their master was unharmed, everyone was relieved. What should we do now? Huling asked. Let's see how Junmei is doing first. Xiao Su frowned. Ethereal wanted to go check, but Qing Yenluo stopped him. He was puzzled and wanted to ask about it, but Qing Yenluo glared at him. Soon, Qing Yenluo went to check on Junmei, who was wrapped in a blanket. After Ethereal smelled the lingering fragrance in the room, he immediately understood. Was Xiaoyan jealous? Was that why she didn't want him to touch other women? At this moment, Xiao Lai rode in to report. Master, there's someone who claims to be the head of the palace's internal affairs who wants to see you. Xiao Su raised his brows. What should come, came. Chapter 335. The head steward of the palace. Chu Qingyan frowned. They had taken so many precautions so that their whereabouts would not be exposed. However, they had not expected that they would be discovered so quickly, and on the second night after they had entered the princess residence. But Chu Qingyan did not know that the reason why Junzi Xing knew their identities so quickly was because her big ice cube ordered someone to reveal it. But what she wanted to know was how Big Ice Cube would deal with it. But now that he had been discovered, his only option was to show himself openly. Let him in, Xiao Su said. Yes. Soon, there was a sound of footsteps, followed by a beardless man wearing a dark gray eunuch uniform. His gaze searched around the room for a while, and when he saw the person sitting on the main seat, he immediately bowed with a smile. This old one, Lao Bai, greets His Royal Highness. Chu Qingyan glanced at this person, and the smile on her face was just right. With just one sentence, she could tell that he was a scheming person. Lao Bai, what business do you have with this prince? Xiao Su looked at him indifferently. Attacking the princess residence in the middle of the night, detaining the princess, and being surrounded by a group of guards, he could still ask him what business he had with him so calmly. Lao Bai was a little surprised. It was rumored that the King of England had made a name for himself when he was young. He had overcome 5 difficulties and killed 6 generals, and was not afraid of 3 armies in the face of battle. He was a person with the nature of a wolf, and now it seemed that it was true. And even though he had been in the palace for many years, other than the previous emperor and the new emperor, he had never been intimidated by anyone who was not angry. His heart was beating like a drum, and he did not know if His Majesty's plan would work on this person. These thoughts only circled around in his mind, and he quickly smiled and replied, His Royal Highness, it was His Majesty who knew that you were in the princess residence, and specially asked this old one to bring you into the palace. His Majesty said that he missed you very much after you parted 2 years ago, and wanted to catch up with you. The carriage has already been arranged outside the residence. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule, but his tone remained calm. How would I dare not respect you? Seeing that Xiao Su agreed, Lao Bai finally let out a sigh of relief. He turned to look at the princess who was lying on the ground, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his eyes. Although he had heard that the princess wanted to do something to Prince Ing, but to treat a princess like this, and the person in front of him still looked so carefree, Lao Bai felt that Princess Zimei had encountered a stubborn rock. He lowered his head and asked, Your Highness, may I ask what the princess is doing? Xiao Su didn't answer. Cheng Yanluo, who had finished examining Juemei's body, stood up and replied in disdain, "Your princess has been poisoned. It's a type of poison that will make her pounce on any man she sees. Fortunately, nothing happened. Otherwise, I'm afraid she would have died." "Miss, what do you mean?" Lao Bai was shocked. Not only him, even Chu Qingyan, Xiao Su, and the others were surprised. "It's very simple. Someone wants to kill your princess and the King of England." She walked to the incense burner, opened the lid, pointed to the incense that had not yet burned out, and said slowly, "This incense is not an aphrodisiac, but a poison that can kill people. Once a man and a woman have sex, they will die on the spot." This was the same poison she had been poisoned with tonight. Then the question was, this poison was exactly the same, so it must have come from the same person. Then who wanted her and Murongju to die, and also wanted Junmei and Xiao Su to die? Was there any connection between the four of them? After saying that, she also saw Murongju frowning thoughtfully. It seemed that he was also suspicious, but it was not suitable to say it now. He had to wait until there were no outsiders present and talk to Xiao Su and the little girl first. Someone is so bold to plot against the princess and the King of England. Lao Bai was angry and immediately called people in. "Watch everyone in the princess's mansion and don't allow anyone to leave. Interrogate them one by one. We must catch the mastermind behind this." Chu Qingyan did not pay attention to what orders Lao Bai gave next. She turned her eyes to look at Junmei, who was half covered by the quilt that Yan Luo had lifted because of her pulse. Although the quilt was not thin, it was not warm at all. It was enough to see her purpose today. Was she trying to seduce the big ice cube? She had said so much in the garden, but she did not expect that Junmei would be awakened by her. But she also did not think that Junmei would use such a method. She said that if she really liked someone, then she should fight for that person's heart instead of targeting other innocent people. But in the end, she saw Junmei forcing the person she liked to accept her at all costs. Chu Qingyan felt that she was very sad. If she liked someone, then she would use such a method to keep him, then it would be the most humble product of love. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. After this incident, her reputation was ruined. Perhaps the people of Junlan were so open-minded that they did not care about a woman's reputation. Anyway, there was no need for her to feel any pity for her. Because a pitiful person must have something hateful. However, she was more gratified by the good character of the big ice cube. If it were other men, seeing such a living beauty, and taking the initiative to throw themselves into their arms, I'm afraid they would have already surrendered. She looked away from Junmei. This kind of person was not worthy of her attention. At this time, Lao Bai had already called people to take care of Junmei. He bowed and said respectfully, "His Royal Highness, it's getting late. Let's go to the palace." As soon as Lao Bai said this, Turin, Ethereal, and the others looked worried. They had just come in and noticed that something was wrong with their master's health. They had to go to the palace before they had time to check. Based on the current situation, they could not let the cat out of the bag in front of the people of Junlan. Because the other party did not know that their master could not use force at the moment. Once they found out, the balance between the two sides would be broken, and they would be in a situation where the enemy was strong and they were weak. Xiao Su did not refuse. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly felt his arm being hugged by a pair of hands. Then, the hands gave him an invisible support. After he steadied himself, he lowered his head and saw the little fellow smiling and saying, let's go. I want to go to the palace of Junlan to see if it's really as beautiful and spectacular as the legends say." He curled his lips. The little fellow wanted to support him. Tonight, he had used a little of his vital energy, so he was still a little weak. "Going to the palace is not for fun," he said. Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue. "You guys are talking about business. I don't know anything. What can I do if not for fun? Do you want me to be so bored that grass will grow on my head again?" Xiao Su did not reply, but Lao Bai looked at her in surprise. This must be the consort of the King of England. I've heard so much about you. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. She had been standing by the side for so long, but it turned out that she had been ignored. I've also heard so much about you. Your Majesties. Chu Qingyan smiled politely. Lao Bai felt as if a few drops of cold sweat had appeared on his forehead. Why did he feel that the consort of the King of England's smile was a little frightening? Chapter 336. The group had been busy the entire night, and it was now close to dawn. Due to the delay in entering the palace, it was already dawn by the time they arrived at the palace. Chu Qingyan and the others were arranged to enter a side chamber as soon as they alighted from the carriage. Lao Bai appeared in front of them not long after they left the side chamber. Masters, His Majesty has gone to attend morning court and has instructed this old servant to take good care of you. His Majesty understands that you didn't rest well last night and has allowed you to rest first. He will summon you in the afternoon. Lao Bai conveyed His Majesty's words. Xiao Su nodded in understanding. Lao Bai arranged for the palace maids and eunuchs to serve them, then excused himself. Ethereal, tell me what else happened last night. When only the few of them were left in the hall, Xiao Su raised his eyes to look at his subordinate standing not far away. He had sensed that Ethereal had something to say last night. Cheng Yenluo was stunned by Xiao Su's question. She bit her lip and felt that the dust had settled. Because of Xiao Su's question, she recalled what had happened last night. It could be said that it was vivid in her mind. She couldn't help but glare at the person beside her, warning him not to speak carelessly. Ethereal wasn't surprised by his master's question, but he was surprised that the person who hadn't looked him in the eye since last night was suddenly glaring at him. He suddenly felt a little pressured. Ethereal nodded at his master, then recounted how he had been drugged with the same drug last night. He only skipped over the entanglement between him and Yen. Chu Qingyan heard this and glanced back and forth between the two of them ambiguously. In the end, after Yen Luo rolled her eyes at her, she withdrew her gaze and turned to the person beside her. Your Highness, I think this incident was done by the same person. The timing and drug match, but I can't figure out the motive behind this. I don't know if they want to deal with Gentleman Beauty or Ethereal and the others. Chu Qingyan mused. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows after hearing her analysis. Go on. Since Big Ice Cube had spoken, she didn't hesitate and continued, I think His Highness is the first to be ruled out because we just arrived in Junlan and no one knows our whereabouts yet. Those thieves can't have noticed us so quickly. Moreover, if they want to deal with His Highness, it won't make sense to implicate Ethereal and Yen Luo. If they want to deal with the princess, then the previous reason won't make sense either. Are you saying that the culprit is after us? Cheng Yenluo was slightly surprised. Turin, Huling, and the others nodded. We think that what the young princess consort said makes sense. Chu Qingyan nodded and asked, Sister Yenluo, Ethereal, have you offended anyone? I'm not blaming you, but if we can find the culprit as soon as possible, if they really want to deal with you, we'll have nothing to worry about. At this moment, Ethereal, who was deep in thought, spoke up. The young princess consort is right. Actually, I have my suspicions too. He paused and looked at his junior sister, who was not far away. Yen Luo, don't you think that the method of making this poison is very similar to that of a person? Initially, Cheng Yen Luo had intended to ignore him. However, under the watchful eyes of so many people, she decided not to bicker with him for the time being. After pondering for a while, her eyes suddenly lit up. I remember now. It's Seventh Uncle Master. He loves to study these unorthodox and extremely potent poisons. But he left the sect a long time ago because he made a mistake. When you entered the sect, he was already gone. How did you know? Ahem. Ethereal coughed softly. Under Cheng Yenluo's suspicious gaze, he replied, I've studied the medical books he left behind. Cheng Yenluo snorted coldly. Evil people like to study such things. Ethereal knew that his junior sister had misunderstood him, but he didn't explain. Instead, he turned to his master and the young princess consort and said, "Back then, I heard from master that 7th Martial Uncle was expelled from the sect because he reported him. I was just wondering if he held a grudge and transferred his hatred to me and Yen Luo. But if that's the case, there's one thing that doesn't make sense. If the culprit's target was Ethereal and Miss Cheng, why would he poison Master and Junmei?" Hualing raised an objection at this moment. Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard this. If our guess is right, the reason why he poisoned Jun Zimei was probably because he wanted to kill her so that he could take advantage of the chaos and escape. Because he dared to harm the princess's guest, what awaited him was the princess's punishment. Hence, he might as well go all the way and get rid of everyone. Chu Qingyan paused at this moment. Junmei has sealed off all information about us. I'm guessing that the culprit is living in the princess's residence. What an interesting deduction. Lao Bai's voice sounded at the door. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. This person was really haunting her. Is there anything else, Lord Lao? Xiao Su asked. It's like this. I just received news that the culprit who tried to harm His Highness and the princess has been caught. It's the doctor in the prince's residence, Sun Qi. The interrogators used some tricks to pry open his mouth. Indeed, as the young princess consort had deduced, he held a grudge against His Highness's subordinate and junior sister. That's why he dared to assassinate them. At this point, Lao Bai looked at Chu Qingyan with admiration. The spies sent to investigate the King of England did not mention anything about this 10-year-old young princess consort. His Majesty also did not take her seriously. It seemed that they had all underestimated this young princess consort. It seemed that the people around the King of England were not to be underestimated. Chu Qingyan felt that this minister of imperial household's eyes were twitching. He kept looking at her. Could it be that flowers were blooming on her face? It's really him, Uncle Master Sun Qi, Cheng Yenluo said angrily. Ethereal sighed. Back then, when the sect expelled him, I thought he would turn over a new leaf. I didn't expect him to go from bad to worse. It takes 3 years to learn well, but only 3 days to learn bad. Chu Qingyan sighed. Seeing that the matter was settled, Lao Bai did not stay any longer and left. Hualing gave her a thumbs up. Young princess consort, you're really amazing. You can even deduce this. Everyone nodded. The young princess consort did have an amazing ability to deduce things. Even Xiao Su gave her a look of admiration. Chu Qingyan coughed a few times. I was just deducing according to common sense. This time, it was a blind cat that caught a dead mouse. Everyone couldn't help but laugh because of her words. The matter of the princess residence had come to an end. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were currently in the Junlan Imperial Palace. Who knew if there would be another princess residence? After a night of torment, Xiao Su ordered them to go back and rest. Hualing and the others accepted the order and left. When no one was around, Chu Qingyan looked sideways at the person beside her with a worried expression. Xiao Su looked at her standing there in a daze and couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you going back to rest?" Big Ice Block, do you think the king of Junlan imperial household has an ulterior motive for letting us enter the palace? She looked at him seriously. Chapter 337. Xiao Su looked at the worried expression of the person in front of him and curled his lips. Why don't you try using your inference again? Pooh, she had just been trying her luck. Now that it involved 2 countries, even if she had 2 brains, she could not see what Junzi Sheng, who was born as a ruler, was thinking. Big Ice Cube, was he teasing her? But the Big Ice Cube was still in the mood to tease her at this time. Did this mean that things were not as bad as she thought? She walked behind him and placed her hand on his shoulder, skillfully massaging him. It's a good thing that you only used a bit of your true qi during the ethereal inspection. It's a good thing that you controlled it, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Chu Qingyan said as she moved her hand, no matter what happens in the future, don't use your true qi. I won't allow you to hurt yourself like this. Chu Qingyan did not realize that once she was worried about someone, her true nature would be revealed. It was not the calmness that a 10-year-old girl should have. If others were to see this, they would definitely think that Chu Qingyan was too calm and steady, which did not suit her age. But Chu Qingyan was very lucky in that she met Xiao Su. He was a person who had self-control and intelligence that surpassed his peers. He was strong and powerful, so in his eyes, Chu Qingyan's actions were reasonable. She was not a young bird under his wings, but a young eagle that could fly with him. And it was because of Xiao Su's attitude that Hualing and the others were used to this kind of Chu Qingyan. Or it could be said that in their eyes, a 10-year-old little princess should be like this. Only then would she be worthy of their powerful master. This was what many people said. Strong when you met the strong, weak when you met the weak. Birds of a feather flocked together. Once the people around you were outstanding, you would unknowingly follow their example. Being outstanding would become a habit in your heart. Thus, the reason why Chu Qingyan had unknowingly revealed her true nature was actually because she had been influenced by Xiao Su and Xiao Lai Qi. Slowly, she revealed her true nature and no longer suppressed it. If the person she met was not Xiao Su, but someone mediocre, then she would be living a repressed life. She was afraid that she would stand out too much in front of mediocre people and become a sure-sway monster in the eyes of others. This was the importance of choosing someone to accompany him. I know what I'm doing. Xiao Su found it a little funny. No one had ever reminded him over and over again like she was a child, and he was the one. However, for the past 20 years, the words that he should have heard at that age were now ringing in his ears. Xiao Su was somewhat self-deprecating. What was even more ironic was that the person who had warned him was still a child. However, after he mocked himself, he felt even more pity for the person who gave him warmth at this moment. Heh, don't keep saying that to me. If we hadn't arrived in time, you would have been surrounded by Gentleman May's soldiers. At that time, even if you grew wings, you wouldn't be able to escape. Chu Qingyan poked his shoulder in disappointment. Big Ice Cube, don't forget that having martial arts now is equivalent to having no martial arts. You can't be so impulsive anymore. Don't I still have you guys? Xiao Su's lips curled up. The little fellow was becoming more and more long-winded. She even dared to criticize him. Chu Qingyan choked. She felt that today's Big Ice Cube was simply too handsome and adorable. Normally, if she wanted to hear him say something like this, she would have to wait until the sky started raining red. The little fellow did not reply. However, Xiao Su continued, Gentleman May violated this prince's taboo. Don't tell me I'm going to let her do whatever she wants. When he thought of Gentleman May's various pretentious gestures last night, he felt that it was simply an insult to his eyes. What taboo do you have? Chu Qingyan was more concerned about this question. Mysophobia. I don't like people coming close. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she subconsciously looked down at her hands. When she barged into Wild Goose Courtyard last night, she had tripped and her hands were dirty. She didn't even have time to wash them before she hugged the Big Ice Cube. She was really glad that the Big Ice Cube didn't send her flying with a slap. Moreover, he didn't seem to blame her for needing his hands at such a close distance. Chu Qingyan silently wondered if she had a special existence in the Big Ice Cube's heart. You should go sleep. Xiao Su didn't know that the person behind him was in a daze and told her to go rest. She was still growing. Not sleeping for an entire night would definitely affect her growth. Chu Qingyan wasn't sleepy at all. She shook her head, I can't sleep. I don't feel confident. She spoke honestly to him. Xiao Su was silent for a moment. Sleep here for a bit. This prince will accompany you. He knew that after experiencing so much, her heart was still a bit uneasy. Chu Qingyan knew that once he spoke, it would be very difficult to change his mind, so she could only agree. She lay down on his bed and covered herself with a thick brocade quilt. Big Ice Cube, I think the people of Junlan know how to live their lives. Whether it's food consumption, it can be considered meticulous. For example, the bed she was lying on was soft and warm. The material was also close to the skin, so it was very comfortable to lie on. Close your eyes and sleep. Xiao Su didn't comment on her evaluation. Instead, he ordered her methodically. Chu Qingyan was a bit dissatisfied. I might not be able to fall asleep if I close my eyes. When she said this, she blinked and smiled. Why don't you tell me a story? Maybe I can fall asleep listening to your voice. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Really? Chu Qingyan nodded vigorously. More silver than real gold. Xiao Su was very helpless at her nonsensical words. After getting up, he took a book and walked back to the bed. Chu Qingyan was a bit curious. She didn't know that the big ice cube actually carried a storybook with him. If she had known, she would have read it on the way to save herself from boredom. When Xiao Su sat down and opened the book, she narrowed her eyes to see what was written on the page. There seemed to be numbers. 316 stratagems. After reading it, she was completely dumbfounded. He told her this after covering her with the quilt. Big Ice Cube, don't you think that this is a bit inappropriate for the occasion? She was going to sleep, not to attend a class. Isn't your point about listening to the voice? Is the content of the story important? Xiao Su seized on her words just now and turned her words around. Chu Qingyan was speechless. You win. It's not important, it's not important. Please continue. Chu Qingyan smiled embarrassedly. Xiao Su looked at her defeated expression and couldn't help but smile. It was a pity that a certain someone was only focused on being sad and was destined to miss this beautiful moment. After Xiao Su flipped open the book, Chu Qingyan, who had closed her eyes, suddenly opened them. She looked at the person above her seriously and said, Big Ice Cube, I'm telling you, don't hit my sleeping acupoint in the future. Otherwise, if there's a fire somewhere and an assassin breaks in, I'm afraid I'll die in a deep sleep. Xiao Su was amused and helpless by her description. Okay, I won't hit your acupoint unless it's absolutely necessary. A gentleman's word is as good as a whip. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to hit his. Xiao Su looked at her small hand and didn't know what to think. Finally, he reached out and touched her hand. Okay, teacher, you can start the class. Chu Qingyan closed her eyes. Xiao Su was helpless against her mischievousness. Today's first class would be a diversion. Calculating the time, Ji Junsheng should be here after the class. Chapter 338. When Xiao Su's deep and mellow voice sounded in the room, Chu Qingyan felt a strong sense of sleepiness hit her. Originally, she wanted to talk to him, but in the end, she couldn't resist the warmth of the quilt, the tiredness of the past few days, and the reassuring voice. Hearing her shallow breathing, Xiao Su didn't immediately stop. Instead, he insisted on finishing the story. By the time he put down the book, the person on the bed had fallen asleep peacefully. He turned around and coldly looked at the person in the room. Your Majesty, don't you know to knock before entering other people's rooms? Hearing this, Jun Zixing said matter-of-factly, I'm afraid I'll disturb your study. Otherwise, if I wake up your little princess consort, the gains won't make up for the losses. Halfway through, he felt Xiao Su's oppressive gaze. Jun Zixing paused, then naturally lowered his voice. He really couldn't tell that he really cared about Chu Qingyan. Xiao Su took the lead to walk out of the room and into the main hall of the side chamber. Jun Zixing looked at his natural and smooth steps and sighed. This was originally his palace, but now it seemed that he had become his guest. Xiao Su casually sat on a chair on the side, leaving the main seat for him. When you entered the palace today, it was already time for the morning court, so we didn't have time to receive you. If there's anything we haven't greeted you well, please forgive us, King of England, Jun Zixing explained with a smile. Your Majesty is the ruler of a country, so you should prioritize national affairs. This one is just passing by Junlan and has no official business. Your Majesty doesn't need to worry too much. Xiao Su's words were, in fact, saying, if you're busy, then go ahead. I have nothing to do, so you can let me go. How could Jun Zixing not understand the meaning behind Xiao Su's words, but he pretended not to understand. I'm busy with national affairs, so I'm really overwhelmed. I kind of miss our battle at Luoyan. Although it was a bit difficult at that time, at least there was anticipation and passion. Now. Jun Zixing let out a long sigh. You're in your position, Xiao Su said calmly and didn't say anything else. Jun Zixing did not expect him to be so perfunctory. He thought that after listening to his words, he would at least have a few comments. Then, he would have a chance to extend the topic and then lead to his final goal. Unfortunately, this person had never played by the rules on the battlefield. Today, it was the same. Gentleman Xing pondered for a moment and then said, let's not talk about this anymore. King of England, why did you suddenly appear in Junlan? And why didn't you say hello to me? Although we were enemies back then, didn't we reconcile in the end? We can be considered as friends who have gone through life and death together. I didn't want to stay in Junlan, but I ran into an accident. In his eyes, he and Jun Zixing were not friends who would go through life and death together. If they were friends who had gone through life and death together, they wouldn't have addressed each other as Lord and Minister. Jun Zixing smiled. The accident you're talking about is my sister, right? She's liked you for many years. What she did is indeed a little too much, but it's reasonable. I hope that King of England won't be calculative with my sister. She's still young and has no sense of propriety. Please be magnanimous and don't take it to heart. If Chu Qingyan was present, she would definitely give Jun Zixing a good scolding. What did he mean by reasonable? Did liking someone mean that he could monopolize them like this? What did he mean by she was still young and had no sense of propriety? She was already 16 years old and was at the age of marriage. In modern times, she was an adult with full criminal responsibility. In order to protect his sister, Jun Zixing was really willing to say anything. I've never cared about unimportant people. Your Majesty, you're worrying too much, Xiao Su replied calmly. However, Jun Zixing didn't care about his men attacking the princess's residence at night because he wanted to do him a favor. Xiao Su knew that in his heart. Since he had already decided to show himself, there was no need to beat around the bush. Your Majesty, if we want to leave Junlan safely, what are your conditions? Jun Zixing was still thinking about how to open his mouth, but he didn't expect him to bring it up first. Jun Zixing thought to himself that sometimes he really couldn't understand the person in front of him. When he asked him to continue the topic, he avoided it. Now, when he didn't mention it, he took the initiative to expose it and hit the nail on the head. It was like this 2 years ago, and it was the same today. He simply couldn't speak properly. However, he was also open-minded. If he could understand the person in front of him, then he wouldn't have lost so miserably back then. Well, since the King of England has spoken, I'll tell you the truth. Jun Zixing said with a headache. 2 years ago, you also knew that our Junlan wasn't as beautiful as it looked on the surface. In fact, it was already torn apart. Ever since my father was assassinated in the palace 5 years ago, he was poisoned. The poison was too strong. The imperial doctors used all their abilities and could only delay his lifespan by a few years. From then on, the court began to fall into chaos. Several imperial uncles used their power to recruit most of the officials in the court. The entire Junlan was not scattered, but its spirit was scattered. At this point, Jun Zixing's voice was a little gloomy. So 2 years ago, when the generals were at their most prosperous, my father sent me to the battlefield to establish my prestige. Although I was defeated, I won back some people's hearts. Unfortunately, it was a drop in the bucket. Now that I can take over the throne, it can be considered a daunting experience without any danger. If it weren't for his father's thoughtfulness, the country would have changed hands before he passed away. Xiao Su glanced at him and said casually, "Since your majesty has taken over the throne, you should find a way to win the hearts of the officials and shoulder the mission your father gave you. If it could be as simple as saying, then I wouldn't have had such a headache for so long." Junzi Xing shook his head with a wry smile. Xiao Su was a little impatient. "Then what does your majesty want me to do?" In the room, Chu Qingyan was half asleep. She turned her head in confusion and only saw the book on the side, but the person just now was nowhere to be seen. She patted her cheeks. Where did the big ice cube go? She counted the time. She had slept for more than an hour and slept really well. At this time, she faintly heard someone talking. She lifted the quilt and got up, put on her coat, and walked slowly to the source of the voice. She went around the door, yawned, and stretched. She recognized that one of the voices was the big ice cubes. She was happy and was about to go in when she heard an unfamiliar voice. The imperial uncles are domineering in their respective territories. They have troops and don't take me seriously. I'm afraid that they will attack the capital in a few days. I hope that you, King of England, can help me take back the military power in the hands of the imperial uncles and get rid of future troubles. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she instantly woke up. What kind of joke was this? You let the big ice cube, the lord of another country, interfere in your country's political affairs. Are you sure you're not making things difficult for me? Wasn't this joke a little too much? Xiao Su, I've never admired anyone in my life, and you're the first one. I've known since we fought 2 years ago. Xiao Su was indifferent to Gentleman Xing's words. He had heard such words too many times. However, this wasn't what he wanted, just like how he didn't want to do those things. Your Majesty, you've said so much because you want me to agree to help you. Xiao Su didn't show any courtesy to him just because he was the emperor. Gentleman Sheng's expression stiffened when he was mercilessly exposed. However, he was an emperor after all. Adjusting his emotions was the most basic skill, so he quickly regained his composure and said with a smile, "King of England, you can think that way." Xiao Su leaned back in his chair leisurely and said with a faint smile, "Your Majesty, why do you think I'll help you?" Gentleman Sheng cursed inwardly. Xiao Su dared to threaten him because he needed him. However, what annoyed him was that he had no other choice but to ask for Xiao Su's help. Because this morning, he had already received a few reports from the troops under his imperial uncles that were restless. This matter could not be delayed any longer. I can promise to block the news about you in Junlan. After the matter is settled, I'll let you leave Junlan and send you safely to the border of Jiang Kingdom. As for Zimei, I promise I won't let her harass you again. Gentleman Sheng said after careful consideration. However, after he finished speaking, Xiao Su didn't show any emotion. He still looked at him calmly, so he felt a little uncertain. He had never been able to figure out Xiao Su. It was the same in the past. 2 years had passed, and it was still the same. Junzi Shen gritted his teeth and said, "I know your current situation. You must have a plan to hide your whereabouts. But you made a lot of noise in the princess's residence. If I hadn't ordered a lockdown, your whereabouts would have been exposed. Although I really don't know why you are going to Jiang country, but to be able to get my order to escort you all the way, it is much faster and more reliable than you traveling alone. Last night, you and Zimei could be considered to have shed all pretense of cordiality. If she wakes up, she will definitely not let it go." He fixed his gaze on Xiao Su. "I've solved all your worries. Isn't this what you want to hear?" At this time, Xiao Su said slowly, "I want information on all the vassals, from childhood to adulthood. Don't leave out anything. Also, I want a map of Junlan, information on all the ministers in the court, and the people they've been in contact with recently. I won't wait until today." With a cold voice and a cold order, Gentleman Xing seemed to have returned to the battlefield. He raised his long sword, as cold as the Grim Reaper, but incomparably majestic. He responded belatedly, "Okay." In the end, Xiao Su agreed. "Before tonight, I'll have all the information sorted out and sent to you." Gentleman Xing stood up. Although he had ceded territory and paid compensation and lost the face of the emperor, he didn't regret it. He looked at the alienated and indifferent Xiao Su in front of him and forced a smile. "King of England, I hope you don't blame me for using such means to keep you here. I wouldn't have chosen this method if I didn't have to." As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't get a reply from Xiao Su. Although he was a little disappointed, it was also reasonable. "I'll take care of Zime's matter. I won't let her disturb you at this stage." Gentleman Zishan glanced at him. "I'll leave first. You have a good rest." "Farewell, Your Majesty." Xiao Su stood up, his expression still indifferent. Gentleman Xing smiled bitterly. He knew Xiao Su's character very well. The fact that he could still be so polite to him was simply a special treatment. He couldn't force anything. After Gentleman Xing left, Xiao Su sat back in his seat, but his expression was as cold as before. "Come out. Aren't you cold standing there?" Chu Qingyan suddenly heard him speak. It was obvious that other than him, she was the only one in the hall at this time. She scratched her head and walked out from the side door, puzzled. "How did you know I was hiding there?" "This king's martial arts were restrained, but I didn't lose it." "Fine." She thought that the big ice block's sensitivity had decreased because of the poison, but she didn't expect it to be the same. "Big ice block, can you really help that Gentleman Xing? This is a mess." She was worried. Chapter 340. What do you think? Xiao Su didn't answer. Instead, he threw the question back at her. Chu Qingyan bit her lip when she heard this. She lowered her eyes and pondered for a moment before looking up at him. "You've never done anything that you're not confident in. So this time, do you already have a plan?" Xiao Su was surprised to hear her say this. There's no such thing as confidence in anything in this world. There's only the choice of whether you're willing to do it or not. She didn't understand what Big Ice Cube meant. Seeing that she was a little confused, Xiao Su thought that perhaps the image he had built for her had affected her view. In fact, he wasn't omnipotent. Not everything in this world could be planned out. Sooner or later, he wouldn't be by her side. She also needed to have her own wings to fight against the wind and rain. He felt that this was the right time to correct her view. Some things may be difficult, but as long as you're willing to do it, even if there's only a 1 in a million chance, you can still grasp it. Whether you do it or not depends on the choice. If you choose to do it, then success depends on the right time, the right place, the right people, and here. He stretched out his index finger and pointed at his head. Chu Qingyan understood immediately, so she understood the meaning of his words. It was precisely because she understood that she was even more worried. In fact, the political affairs of Junlan were very tricky for Big Ice Cube. How could a person from another country be able to handle the intricate political relations of his own country? But in order to be able to take everyone away, he chose to accept Gentleman Xing's conditions. So no matter what, he would do his best to solve it. Chu Qingyan felt a little sorry for the person in front of her. He was poisoned, but he still had to worry about these things. Yen Luo had already warned him not to worry too much. Otherwise, there might be accidents. That's very difficult, isn't it? What about the vassal king of Junlan? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. Xiao Su looked at her and softened his tone. I'll do my best. Is there anything I can help you with? Chu Qingyan volunteered. As long as you're obedient, he replied without thinking. I'm serious, not joking with you. Chu Qingyan was helpless. She was really not a child, and she was very obedient, okay? Yes, Xiao Su suddenly said with a serious face. What? Chu Qingyan was filled with anticipation. She also hoped that she could help Big Ice Cube a little, and not worry about it all day. He looked into his eyes and said word by word. Eat your fill for 3 meals, don't be picky. Remember to go to the calligraphy room and read books. Poof. She was really talking about serious matters with him. How could he tease her again and again? Chu Qingyan crossed her arms, looking gloomy. Looking at the smoke coming out of the little fellow's head, Xiao Su was very clear that he had pissed her off. The little fellow was cute when she was angry, but when she was angry, it was quite torturous. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt a weight on her head and a chuckle came from above. There is something I need your cooperation on right now. Chu Qingyan gave a cold snort. She did not know what he was going to say to tease her. The little fellow did not respond. It seemed like she was hit by his first 2 sentences. He curved his lips. This king is tired, go and read a story to this king. As soon as his voice fell, she blinked in disbelief. Big Ice Cube wasn't joking, right? He wanted her to read him a bedtime story. Snow in June. Red rain falling from the sky. The sun rising in the west. Or did she hear wrong? But when she saw the book in her hand and the person lying on the bed in front of her, Chu Qingyan finally recovered from her disbelief. It seemed like it was not snow in June today, but Big Ice Cube's personality changing. But she still seriously flipped through the book, reading it word by word. When she was studying, she had participated in many poetry recitations and storytelling competitions. She always came in first place, so it could be said that she was very familiar with this matter. Today's story is about besieging Wei to save Zhao. In 354 BC, the Zhao country attacked the Wei country. The clear voice had a bit of a childish tone to it. Listening to it, it was like a flowing stream. The voice was gentle and it immediately brought people into the story. Xiao Su slightly hooked his lips and then closed his eyes. Perhaps he could still rest today. Once the information was presented, he would not have time to enjoy the peace and tranquility at this moment. The voice reading the story became softer and softer, intermittent, until it finally disappeared. Xiao Su opened his eyes and looked to the side. The person who had been alive and kicking just now had fallen asleep leaning against the bedpost and the book in her hand had slipped from her fingers onto her lap. Winter afternoons were very cold. If the weather was good, the sun's rays would still carry some heat, but this kind of heat often made people sleepy. And she just happened to be sitting in the position where the sun shone in, bathing her whole body in the warm sun. Xiao Su looked at the peaceful expression on her face and could not bear to look away. In the past, he had never paid attention to other people's frowns and smiles, or what other people showed. In his eyes, it was like looking at flowers through the fog, separated by a layer. But every time he saw the joy, anger, sorrow, and joy on the little fellow's face, he felt that it was very fresh and very nostalgic. Every time he saw her sleeping peacefully, he felt that the years were peaceful and the flourishing world was stable. Unfortunately, he was unable to give her true peace and stability. From the time she entered the Fu until now, all she had suffered was unexpected misfortune. If it was not for that imperial edict, she would still be that carefree young girl in Mao village. Perhaps I will not be able to give you stable years in my life because my life may be very short. But don't worry, I will let you leave in advance. Xiao Su picked up the person leaning against the bedpost and placed her on the couch. He carefully covered her with the blanket and then sat down on the chair. He raised his hand to caress her cheek and whispered, "Sleep. Have a good sleep." Chu Qingyan felt that in her dream, someone seemed to be whispering something, making her slowly fall asleep step by step. Xiao Su bent his index finger and pressed it against her forehead. He leaned against the bedpost and watched her fall into a light sleep. Now, there were not many days left where he could steal half a day of leisure. Then, he should enjoy it. In the princess's residence, the poison in Juanmei's body had been cured. She listened to Nanny Yi's account of what had happened this day and night with a gloomy face. In the end, she slammed the bowl in her hand on the pillar, and it instantly shattered into pieces. The maidservants in the room were so frightened that they trembled. Sun Qi, that dog slave, actually dared to secretly harm me. Tell the person in charge that I want him to live a life worse than death. Junmei gritted her teeth and said. Yes. Nanny Yi could only bite the bullet and agree. By the way, where are the King of England and the rest? Junmei calmed down and asked. His Majesty took him into the palace. Nanny Yi lowered her head and replied. Why did Imperial Brother take him into the palace? This won't do, I have to bring him back. Junmei flipped over and got off the bed. Chapter 341. As soon as Junzi got off the bed, Nanny Yi stopped her. Princess, His Majesty said that you should stay in the manor and recuperate. Don't move around. I know my own body best. I'll be fine once the poison is cured, Junzi said as she put on her shoes. But His Majesty told me to watch you recuperate and completely remove the poison, Nanny Yi insisted. Hearing this, Junzi glared at her fiercely. Mama, have you been bribed by my royal brother? Is that why you dare to interfere with me? Nanny Yi hurriedly knelt down. Princess, you've misunderstood. I'm doing this for your own good. For my own good? Ha, Nanny Yi, you have to see clearly who your master is. My brother stopped me from entering the palace because he didn't want me to see Xiao Su. What right do you have to talk to me like that? Junzi reprimanded her without holding back. Princess, please reconsider. Nanny Yi advised earnestly. Anyway, I'm definitely going to enter the palace. Don't stop me. It wasn't easy for her to see Xiao Su, and it wasn't easy for her to detain him in the prince's estate. How could her imperial brother suddenly interfere? She originally wanted to wait until she truly became his woman before confessing everything to her imperial brother. Why couldn't her imperial brother give her some time to properly deal with these things? Moreover, her brother was clearly trying to stop her from being with Xiao Su. She couldn't accept this. It was as if the person who had always spoiled her suddenly stopped doting on her. She couldn't accept it. Junzi saw Nanny Yi still kneeling on the ground. Anger built up in her heart. Without thinking, she kicked Nanny Yi to the ground. Then, she lifted her skirt and led her maids to the palace. Princess, Nanny Yi fell to the ground and shouted in pain. But Junzi had already gone far away. In the Junlan Imperial Palace. Junzi Sheng looked at the information in her hands. After confirming that there were no mistakes, she passed it to Lao Bai. The King of England wants this information. Send someone to deliver it to his palace later. Yes, Your Majesty. After Lao Bai received the large stack of information, a look of confusion appeared on his face. He stood there, unsure whether he should ask His Majesty. Jun Zixing picked up a pen from the side. Seeing that her subordinate was hesitant to speak, she couldn't help but say, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't hesitate. Lao Bai asked, Your Majesty, is it appropriate for you to pin all your hopes on the King of England? After all, the situation in Junlan has existed for decades. The vassals' connections have spread throughout the Junlan dynasty. They are intertwined and twisted. Those people have become even more aggressive, and the situation is once again grim. Your humble subject is not doubting the ability of the King of England, but I think, rather, you feel that the situation doesn't allow us to delay any longer, right? Jun Zixing continued. He wasn't a person who couldn't listen to advice. Lao Bai had been by his father's side for many years, and now he had come to support him. To him, this was a good helper. Therefore, he would still consider his words carefully. Your humble subject has the same intention. Lao Bai nodded in acknowledgement. Hearing this, Jun Zixing smiled slightly, but there was a hint of bitterness in his smile. Lao Bai, if I had the slightest idea, I wouldn't have asked for the help of outsiders. After all, it would be a disgrace to an emperor. But for so many years, because of the constraints of my uncles, I have rarely been able to truly participate in the decision-making of state affairs. As a result, even if I take over the throne now, I can't let go of my hands and feet. Xiao Su is used to using power and scheming. He has experienced a lot of intrigue. On the battlefield, he values speed in war and plays tricks in his hands. He is also good at guessing people's hearts. That's why I want to ask for his help. Moreover, he is the most trustworthy person, so he is the only person I can trust now. Jun Zixing smiled bitterly. Every royal family had unspeakable secrets. Who would be willing to reveal all the secrets of their royal family to outsiders? But if it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, he wouldn't do this. His gaze fell on the information in Lao Bai's hands. It not only contained the secrets of the royal family, but also many unspeakable things. But for the sake of Jun Lan's future, he could only throw caution to the wind. Lao Bai understood his emperor's worries. He was also helpless, but he was a little hesitant. Your Majesty, does the King of England need this much information? In fact, what he wanted to say was, does he need these royal secrets? Since he has asked for it, it must be useful. There's no need to say more. Send it over. Jun Zixing raised his hand tiredly. When Lao Bai saw this, he didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he excused himself and left. Lao Bai walked out of the hall and saw Jun Zixing walking towards him. He bowed to her and left. Jun Zixing frowned and looked in the direction Lao Bai left, then stepped into the imperial study. The princess has arrived. Jun Zixing raised his head and saw his sister's angry face. Why do you look so angry? Who made our lovely Princess Zimei angry? Of course, Jun Zixing knew why she had come, but he pretended not to know. Jun Zixing glared at him. Brother, you're asking the obvious. Oh. What do you mean? Jun Zixing asked in surprise. Jun Zixing was a little annoyed. Brother, you ordered someone to take away the important guest I invited with great difficulty last night. How can you still act like it's nothing important? Jun Zixing saw that she was so straightforward, so he stopped pretending. Are you sure you invited him here? You didn't kidnap him? Jun Zixing was stunned. Then, she retorted, that's not important. What's important is that he's here. Speaking up to this point, Young Mei thought about her brother's usual uncompromising character and immediately softened her tone. Brother, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have disregarded his wishes and brought him back to the princess's residence. But I really like Xiao Su. Please forgive me this time and return him to my sister. Jun Zixing was so angry that he laughed. If you weren't born a woman, I would suspect you of being a bully who snatches women. So what if I'm a bully? I'm willing to do anything for him. Jun Zixing swore solemnly. Jun Zixing heard her and felt a headache coming on. Zimei, the relationship between a man and a woman is about mutual consent. It's not about coercion. Besides, I have something to discuss with Xiao Su. I can't hand him over to you for the time being. Brother, you're too much. Jun Zixing flew into a rage when she saw that her coquetry didn't work. You're the one who's too much. Jun Zixing's good temper was worn out by her. You're willing to throw away the princess's reputation for your own selfish reasons. If I hadn't helped you hide it, do you know how many people in Junlan would laugh at you? Brother, you weren't like this before. You wouldn't be so fierce to me. What's wrong with you today? Jun Zixing was stunned by his roar. When she came back to her senses, she was already in tears. Chapter 342. Seeing her reddened eyes, Jun Zixing knew that his tone was a bit off. However, he worked day and night on national affairs, and now he was burning with anxiety. His younger sister didn't obediently stay in the residence and wanted to cause trouble. The pity in his heart was replaced by anger. He sighed. Someone, take the princess away. She's not allowed to leave the princess residence for half a month. Jun Zixing couldn't believe what she heard. Imperial brother, how can you treat me like this? Zixing, you'll know in the future that Imperial brother is doing this for your own good. Jun Zixing turned around and waved for someone to take her away. Jun Zixing looked at the two guards walking over. She knew that no matter what she said, Imperial brother wouldn't change his mind. Thus, she glared fiercely at the two guards. There's no need for you to come. This consort will leave on her own. Jun Zixing angrily stomped out of the imperial study. It didn't matter if she wasn't allowed to see Xiao Su. She had her own ways. It was just that this wasn't the right time to clash with Imperial brother. Jun Zixing listened to the sound of footsteps fading away behind him and sighed inwardly. Now that Junlan had reached this critical juncture, his imperial sister was still focused on love and didn't care about Junlan's safety at all. He was very disappointed. If Junlan was able to survive this crisis, then he must properly discipline this royal sister of his. However, what he didn't know was that his imperial sister was still thinking about how to snatch Xiao Su back to the princess residence. In the side hall, Xiao Su had already received the information sent by Jun Zixing. Lao Bai stood to the side and respectfully said, His Imperial Highness, His Majesty said that if there's any information you're still lacking, just mention it. He'll fulfill it. There's no need for now. Xiao Su took out one of the secret letters and took the time to reply. Yes. Seeing that Xiao Su was already seriously reviewing the letter, Lao Bai retreated. Turin and Hualing stood on both sides. Seeing the mountainous pile of information on the table, Hualing couldn't help but ask, Master, I'm afraid that Emperor Junlan's real power has been stripped away in the past 2 years. Can we clean up this mess? I have to do it even if I can't. Xiao Su looked calm, then pointed to the letters on the table and said, Take a look and find the weaknesses of each king. Yes. Turin and Hualing accepted the order and joined in the review. When the information was delivered, it was already close to night. They took a look and knew it was already nighttime. When Chu Qingyan woke up again, the sky was already dark. Except for a weak light in the room, it was pitch black. She got up. Xining heard the commotion outside, so she pushed the door open and walked in. Master, you're awake. She was holding a lunchbox in her hand. She placed the food on the table and then went to get water for her to wash up. How long have I slept? She felt that she had slept for a very long time and was very comfortable. 4 hours. His Highness specifically instructed this servant not to disturb you. Xining replied with a smile. Chu Qingyan took the cloth in her hand and wiped her face. Then she asked, Where's His Highness? His Highness, Lord Hualing, and Lord Turin are working. He told everyone not to disturb them if there's nothing important. Xining replied with a smile. Chu Qingyan nodded. Previously, Big Ice Cube asked Jun Zixing to send the information. With how anxious Jun Zixing was at this time, he must have sent the information early. Then where's Jean Xin? She didn't seem to have seen him today. When Xining heard her master mention Jean Xin's name, a touch of displeasure appeared on her face. You mean him? He's holding a book like a treasure and practicing martial arts in front of it every day. Now he's probably practicing his moves in the courtyard. I feel like he's about to go crazy. It was rare to hear Xining complain about someone, so Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. You seem to have a big prejudice against him. As soon as Jean Xin was mentioned, she couldn't stop talking. That person isn't worthy of this servant's attention. Every time I kindly ask him to eat, he doesn't even say a word of thanks. He always looks like someone owes him millions. Just now, this servant kindly told him not to practice for too long in the cold weather, but he said that this servant was meddling in other people's business. Speaking of this, Xining's face was filled with grief and indignation. Master, listen to this. Isn't this called treating good intentions as ill intent? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. Why do I feel that Jin Xian's temper is still good? Why do you sound like he has two faces? Xining pouted. How would this servant know what he's thinking? If it weren't for the fact that we're both serving master, this servant wouldn't meddle in other people's business. In any case, this servant won't bother with him anymore. Listening to Xining's words, Chu Qingyan felt that it was a bit like enemies didn't meet. This girl said this. The next time her good intentions overflowed, she reckoned that she wouldn't learn her lesson again. She suddenly remembered what her father said before. He wanted to pair Xining and Jin Xian together. Now it seemed that there were some signs. Xining was lively and active, while Jin Xian was silent and steady. The two of them matched very well. But, Jin Xian's origin had always been a worry in her heart. Although she never doubted him, even Xiao Lai-Chi couldn't find out his identity. In addition, he had lost his memory. She couldn't joke about Xining's life. So everything was up to fate. Before Jin Xian remembered his origin, she wholeheartedly trusted him. If there was a day when he remembered the past and wanted to leave, she wouldn't make things difficult for him. He's cold on the outside but warm on the inside. You should be more tolerant. Take out the magnanimity of the princess's #1 maidservant and most trusted aide. Chu Qingyan patted her shoulder and comforted her. Xining wasn't a person who liked to haggle. At most, she would just talk. Since her master had said so, she wouldn't take it to heart. After smiling and agreeing, she took care of her master's food. Master, the food in the palace is quite similar to our Sichuan's taste. You'll definitely like it. Hurry and try it. Xining helped her ladle a bowl of rice and put it in front of her. Chu Qingyan looked at the food on the table and nodded slightly. The new emperor of Junlan had put down his face to ask for Big Ice Cube's help. He wouldn't neglect food. It could be seen that Junlan's situation had reached a critical point. After eating 2 mouthfuls, she asked, "Has His Highness eaten dinner?" "He has." The palace maid sent the food in the evening. Xining stood at the side and occasionally helped her put food in the dishes. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she looked at the sky. More than 2 hours had passed. Big Ice Cube and the others would definitely be busy through the night. Xining, after dinner, let's go make some food for His Highness and the others as supper. She remembered that there was a small kitchen in this side hall. She could use it later. Okay, we have a lot of things in our palace. We have all the ingredients. Xining said. She couldn't help but think that the people who made the arrangements were very thorough. Chu Qingyan nodded. At this time, the princess's residence was in a mess. Chapter 343. Her brother, who had doted on her for more than 10 years, refused to let her into the palace because of someone else. She had nowhere to vent her anger, so she could only torment the maids around her. When she returned home that night, a maid accidentally broke a teacup, so she ordered her to be beaten. The mournful cries outside had gradually died down. That maid had been raised by Mama. Mama couldn't bear to listen to her. She knew that the princess was punishing her as an example to warn her that her master was only one person, and her life was in her hands. At this time, the blue-robed officer came in. "Princess, I'm back. Have you found out which palace the King of England is staying in?" Junmei put down the teacup and asked anxiously. "I've found it. It's in a side hall near the Golden Phoenix Palace, but it's heavily guarded. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get in," the blue-robed officer said worriedly. "It's good that you know where it is." Junmei breathed a sigh of relief. She was afraid that her brother had hidden him and she couldn't find him. Then she would really go crazy. Hearing the princess's words, it seemed that she wanted to secretly find the King of England. The blue-robed officer couldn't help but say, "Princess, His Majesty has ordered people to watch over the princess's residence and not let you take a step out. Why don't you wait until His Majesty calms down before entering the palace?" No. Junmei rejected without hesitation. If she waited for half a month, wouldn't Xiaosu run away? She had finally caught him when he was down and out. If she waited any longer, her plan would be in vain. I've never failed to get what I want. It was true in the past and it is true now, Junmei said with determination. The blue-robed officer knew his master's temperament well and didn't dare to persuade her again. He just hoped that when His Majesty found out, it wouldn't implicate too many people. I'll enter the palace tonight. Go and make the arrangements. Be discreet and don't let anyone find out, Junmei ordered. Yes. The blue-robed officer accepted the order and left. Junmei walked in front of the mirror and reached out to touch her face. She couldn't understand why he wasn't moved by her even though she had dressed up so meticulously last night. A trace of doubt appeared in her eyes, but it was quickly drowned out by confidence. She had heard that he wasn't feeling well last night. Perhaps that was the reason why he wasn't willing to touch her. Then she would properly open her heart to him tonight and tell him about her admiration for him. She would explain that last night's matter wasn't her doing. If he knew that she loved him so much, even a rock would be moved. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but sit down and pick up the eyebrow pencil to draw. She wanted to show her best side to him tonight. Looking at the princess in front of the mirror, Nanny Yi felt that the princess was too conceited and too persistent, as if she had been possessed by Xiaosu. But she was no longer qualified to advise the princess. The maid outside who was still breathing was the result of disobeying her. Nanny Yi couldn't do anything about it. An hour later, they were informed that everything was ready. Junzi Mei stood up and opened the door. She ordered everyone not to follow her before she left with the blue-robed officer. Beside the carriage stood 2 rows of the Princess Mansion's elites. Junzi Mei revealed a satisfied smile before getting into the carriage. Tonight's matter could only succeed and not fail. In the side hall, it was brightly lit. Chu Qingyan carried a tray into the discussion room. At the table, Xiaosu, Huoling, and Turan were sitting in a corner. In front of them was a mountain of information. After reading it, they would put it to the side and write from time to time. Chu Qingyan placed the tray on another table and walked over to touch their teacups. She found that they were already cold, so she had Xining go and change them. Turan and Huoling saw her come over and bowed before continuing to write. Xiaosu put down the documents in his hands and looked up at her. It's late, you should sleep early. I've already slept for an entire afternoon, so I'm not sleepy now. I just brought some supper over. If you're hungry, eat some first. Chu Qingyan walked in front of him and said with a smile. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Xiaosu called for his 2 subordinates to go eat. Huoling stretched and pulled Turan to fill his stomach. Chu Qingyan saw this and also placed a stack of pastries in front of him. Then she placed her hands on the table and asked curiously, "Have you found any useful clues until now?" Xiaosu picked up a piece of ice cream and nodded when he heard this. Junzi Xing found a complete set of information. There are many useful things in there. As soon as he finished speaking, Huoling quickly said, "Little Princess Consort, you don't know, but when we saw this information, we felt that the world is so big and there are so many strange things. There are so many funny things in there." As soon as Huoling finished speaking, he received a cold glare from his master. He knew that he had misspoken and immediately lowered his head to eat his supper. On the side, Turan scolded him, "You deserve it." Huoling knew that he was in the wrong, so he ignored him. When Chu Qingyan heard Huoling say this, she casually picked up a piece of information to look at. Her curiosity was already piqued by the word funny. There weren't many things in the imperial family that could be called funny. Because she had often entered Big Ice Cube's study before, he wouldn't care about anything she looked at, so Chu Qingyan just looked at it on her own. When Xiaosu on the side saw this, he felt a bit helpless. How could the imperial family's secrets be described as funny? It should be outrageous. He only hoped that this little fellow wouldn't be too shocked after reading it. The document in Chu Qingyan's hands happened to be the daily diet records of the previous Junlan emperor, who was also Jun Ziheng's grandfather. She casually flipped through the records, and her attention was drawn to one particular record. In the past, Jun Zisheng's grandfather was obsessed with longevity. When he heard that virgin boys' urine could slow down aging, he actually had his son, the previous emperor, pee for him to drink. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt like vomiting. She immediately closed the cover and saw the word, secret, written on it. She knew that it was probably sealed a long time ago and was only taken out because Big Ice Cube needed it. She casually flipped through the other documents. There was also a secret document. It was about the previous emperor's harem's promiscuity. The imperial concubine couldn't bear the loneliness and actually had an affair with a eunuch. She flipped through another secret investigation letter. It was about the truth of the harem's imperial concubine framing a favored imperial concubine and causing her to have a miscarriage. Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. This Junlan imperial family was really chaotic. No, it should be that as long as there was a struggle for power, it would be this chaotic. But what she admired even more was that Jun Zisheng actually dared to show these things to Big Ice Cube. This was simply too embarrassing, alright? As if he saw through Chu Qingyan's thoughts, Xiao Su's eyes were tainted with the faint light of the candlelight and appeared gentle. Do you know why this prince wants to know everything about the Junlan imperial family's 3 generations of emperors, no matter how big or small, including their daily diet, daily hunting outside the palace, and daily pulse reading? Chu Qingyan looked into his eyes and couldn't help but ask, why? Chapter 344. One day, the little girl would come into contact with these things. Although she was only 10 years old now, there were many things that had to be done when she was a child. Although he didn't want her to know about the evilness of the palace and the cunning of people so early. Sooner or later, she would have to learn how to protect herself and make the most appropriate response in times of crisis. Because when you become an enemy, the first thing you have to know is everything in his life. Perhaps it's just a small matter, but it can become a fatal flaw. Xiao Su's tone was serious. Chu Qingyan nodded. She understood. This is called knowing yourself and your enemy, and you will never be defeated. That's right. Xiao Su nodded. Big Ice Block, can you tell me about the current situation in Junlan? At this moment, she wasn't sleepy at all. She was very curious about the process of a great country being divided by a few vassals. Originally, he wanted to take this opportunity to tell her. Seeing that she had taken the initiative to mention it, Xiao Su nodded generously. When Chu Qingyan saw this, she immediately pulled over a chair and sat upright, listening attentively. Seeing her humble and eager to learn, Xiao Su curled his lips and began to explain. Thus, Chu Qingyan listened to Xiao Su's description and roughly knew what kind of situation Junlan was in. Gentleman Sheng's grandfather had 10 sons. One of them was born to the empress, and the rest were born to the concubines. Only 6 princes lived to adulthood, including the one born to the empress. In the end, he was made the crown prince at the age of 16. However, not long after he was made the crown prince, he died in an accident when he fell off a horse while hunting. When Gentleman Sheng's grandfather found out, he was so heartbroken that he wanted to die. In the end, he passed away. However, at this time, Gentleman Sheng's grandfather's personal butler took out an imperial edict. On it was written that he would pass the throne to the 7th prince, who was Gentleman Sheng's father. As soon as this imperial edict was issued, the other 4 princes questioned the credibility of this imperial edict. However, at that time, the 4 of them didn't have military power and couldn't do anything. Gentleman Sheng's mother, the 7th imperial concubine, was a powerful general at that time. She had 100,000 soldiers and horses under her command. At that time, she was stationed outside the capital. However, it was also at that time that rumors spread that Gentleman Sheng's father had killed his brother and father to obtain the throne. Due to the pressure of public opinion, even though the 4 princes had joined forces to resist, Junzi Sheng's father couldn't do anything to them. This was because if he continued to hold these brothers accountable, it would become evidence that Junzi Sheng had killed his father and the crown prince. As such, he could only give them a piece of land each and banish them from the capital. Unless it was an important festival, they couldn't return to the capital. However, it was precisely because of Gentleman Sheng's imperial father's decision to let the tiger return to the mountain, leaving behind future troubles. At that time, the 4 princes were named King Jing, King Jin, King Zhe, and King Ping. These 4 vassal kings were sent to their fiefs, but they didn't give up on the idea of fighting for the throne. When Gentleman Sheng's father began to reorganize the court, they secretly recruited soldiers and bought horses to win over the court officials. Soon, their strength became incomparable. However, by the time Gentleman Sheng's father realized it, these vassal kings had already reached a point where they couldn't be shaken. This became a sore point for Gentleman Sheng's father. Thus, the tug-of-war between the capital and the 4 vassal kings began. But soon, Gentleman Sheng's father's health deteriorated. For some reason, even the imperial doctors couldn't detect it. Then, Gentleman Sheng's father was assassinated and poisoned. The murderer couldn't be found, but people with discerning eyes knew that it was the vassal kings who did it. However, Gentleman Sheng's father didn't have any evidence and couldn't be arrested. In these years, Gentleman Sheng's father's health deteriorated. In the end, he passed away after passing the throne to Gentleman Sheng. Then, when Gentleman Sheng took over the throne, his brothers and sisters died one after another. Then, something strange happened. Thus, a new round of public opinion came. Gentleman Sheng was narrow-minded. After the registration, he began to eliminate future troubles around him. Rumors spread everywhere, and there were also objections in the court. At this time, the vassal kings began to get restless. It was said that they wanted to enter the capital to attack. However, as early as when Gentleman Sheng took over the throne, his grandfather's military power had already been handed over after his death. Now, the military power was divided into 4 parts, and it was simply not enough to resist the situation. Pull one hair and the whole body would be affected. These vassal kings were watching to see who would make the first move, so in fact, this was also a psychological battle. Once someone made the first move, the situation would be broken. Soon, the capital would be besieged, and then Junlan's territory would be nibbled away step by step. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. This situation could be said to have reached a critical point. It was no wonder that Gentleman Sheng was so anxious at this time. He didn't even care about his face as the ruler of a country and lowered his voice to seek help from the big ice cube. But in such a difficult situation, even if the big ice cube was an immortal, it would be difficult for him to solve it. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked at the person in front of her, but from the afternoon until now, she hadn't seen the big ice cube show a trace of embarrassment. She was a little surprised. Could it be that the big ice cube had a countermeasure? Xiao Su guessed her thoughts and said lightly, "Although I don't interfere in the government affairs of other countries, the Ministry of Wind will send the collected information to me." So, in fact, from the beginning, you already knew the situation? Chu Qingyan widened her eyes. "Yes, now I'm just looking for a breakthrough." His answer was very calm, and his face was full of indifference, as if he was just looking for a way to eat the food in front of him. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but want to give him a thumbs up. The big ice cube was too prepared for a rainy day. Don't be happy too early. Right now, everything is still unknown. Xiao Su reached out and knocked her on the head to prevent her from getting carried away. Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue, then said, "Then I'll also help look for these people's weaknesses." As she spoke, she picked up the information and began to seriously look through it. When Xiao Su saw this, he let her do as she pleased. Sooner or later, she would learn these things. Right at this moment, a carriage stopped at the palace gates for inspection. "We were summoned into the palace by concubine Lin. This is the token." After the inspection, the guard in charge of inspection let them pass. "Princess, you've successfully passed." The blue-robed officer handed the token back to the person in the carriage. Junmei tossed the token in her hand. This was the token that concubine Lin had given her in order to curry favor with her. She had originally disdained it, but she didn't expect that she would have a use for it today. Her lips curled into a slight smile. All right, hurry up. Yes. The carriage driver drove even faster on the long road. Xiao Su, this consort will see you very soon. Junmei smiled softly in the carriage, her eyes filled with longing, as if she was meeting her lover. Chapter 345. No one knew that on the long road of the imperial palace, there was a carriage that was currently moving. The night was very dark, but there were large red lanterns hanging all over the palace, covering the entire palace in a yellow glow. The glazed tiles shined under the moonlight, making the entire palace look like a city that never slept. Be careful, don't let the guards in the palace recognize you. Jun Zimei warned. Princess, you can rest assured. Everything has already been taken care of. The blue-robed officer replied in a low voice, his voice filled with confidence. Money makes the world go round. Adding in the fact that his cousin was in charge of patrolling the palace, he had already sent people away, so he wasn't worried that someone would suddenly appear on this road. Hearing her subordinate's reply, Jun Zimei relaxed. In the side hall, Chu Qingyan was currently seriously helping to organize the information. Xiao Su was seriously looking at the important points his subordinate had marked out. Then he categorized them, differentiating the importance of each point. Hualing and Turan quickly flipped through the information, not letting go of any useful information. Xining stood on the side, yawning from time to time and rubbing her eyes from time to time, but no matter what her master told her to do, she wasn't willing. This was because she had to prepare hot tea and snacks for them, afraid that they would be hungry or thirsty. When she was tired, she would add some charcoal to the stove to make the entire room a bit warmer. Chu Qingyan saw that she was insistent, so she didn't rush her anymore. This kind of sleepless struggle made her feel as if she had returned to the time before the final exams of university. In order not to fail, the 6 people in her dormitory had stayed up all night reading books, doing questions, and discussing questions all night long. However, at that time, they were just cramming at the last minute, but that kind of drive was similar to now. It made her sigh when she recalled that time. Things had remained the same, but people had changed. Just as she was lost in thought, she felt a weight on her shoulder. She looked down and saw a slender hand that was fairer than a woman's. She looked along the blue sleeve and met a pair of eyes that were swirling with stars. Sometimes, she felt that it was very strange. The big ice cube's eyes seemed to change color. When he was quiet, it was like a calm stream. When he was angry, it was like a pitch-black whirlpool. When he was unfathomable, it was as dark as the night sky. When he looked at you with a kind of pitiful eyes, it would be like now, as dazzling as the glazed starlight. What are you thinking about? Xiao Su frowned slightly. When the little fellow met his eyes, she suddenly became absent-minded. This feeling was somewhat strange, as if the person who was firmly grasped in the palm of his hand had suddenly lost track of her. Big ice cube, your eyes are like stars, she blurted out without thinking. Is that so? He couldn't help but relax his brows, and his mood suddenly became very good. His cold voice fell into her ears, successfully waking her up. Oh no, what the hell did she just say? Did he bring his brain with him? Her cheeks heated up, and she immediately buried her head in the information in her hands. She had really lost a lot of face. Pretty. Big Ice Cube actually asked him if his eyes were pretty. She had never seen him care so much about his appearance before. She wanted to shake her head against her will, but in the end, she honestly nodded, but her eyes didn't dare to look at him. Do you still have your stars? Suddenly hearing his question, Chu Qingyan paused and pulled out a string from her lapel. Then the grape-sized star fell onto her hand. At this time, the room was a bit dark, but the star in her hand emitted a white light, instantly lighting up the entire room. Very good. Xiao Su patted her head and then continued to study the information on the table. Chu Qingyan was stunned on the spot. What did Big Ice Cube mean by this? He asked her if she had brought it, and she took it out. Then he said 2 words, very good. Moreover, the way he patted her just now, it seemed like he was patting a pet. Chu Qingyan felt a deep malice from this world. In the future, when she asked about this matter, she had already become the King of England's concubine. At that time, because she was too idle, she often liked to take out the past to pester him. And he also didn't refuse her intimacy and questions. He thought for a long time, then patted her head, just like how he patted her head today, and then said slowly. You think that this king's eyes are pretty, but this king has already given you the best stars a long time ago. So when you think of this king in the future, just look at the stars and you will see this king. After listening for a long time, Chu Qingyan belatedly realized that he actually knew how to say words of love. It was warm in the palace hall, and it was a world of difference from the cold outside. A door in the palace hall slowly opened from the inside, and a slender figure walked out. It was Qing Yenluo, who couldn't sleep at night. She turned around and closed the door, then walked slowly in a random direction in annoyance. Today, as soon as she lay on the bed, she would recall everything that happened last night. Throwing herself at him, pestering him, her abnormal behavior after being poisoned, and what he said. Because of what she said, it caused him to be absent-minded in front of her. Xiao Yan, you haven't smiled at me like this for a long time. This sentence echoed in her ears, and her mind went blank. Then she quickly shook her head, trying to get rid of these words that had been echoing in her mind. Are you finally willing to forgive me? It rang again. She felt that she had no other choice, so she simply walked back in despair with her arms crossed. She wanted to come out to calm down, but it seemed that it didn't work. She lay back on the bed and tossed and turned. At least the quilt was warm. Just as she was about to turn around and go back, she felt a weight on her shoulders, and warmth fell on her body, instantly enveloping her. It was a familiar smell. It was a faint grass fragrance, which was different from the smell of many men. She guessed that it was him. Murongju, why are you following me? Because she didn't have to carry him, she had a little confidence. I didn't follow you. I just couldn't sleep, so I came out for a walk and happened to run into you. His voice sounded behind her. It seemed a little hoarse, but he managed to suppress it. Qing Yenluo closed her eyes, then turned to look at him. Murongju didn't expect that she would suddenly turn around and was a little stunned. Then he smiled modestly. Can't you sleep, too? Murongju, what happened today? She hesitated for a moment, but didn't know how to start. Although she was poisoned, she did intend to violate him, and the person who saved her was also him. You don't have to explain. I know you had no choice at that time. It's all in the past. He stopped her from continuing. With Xiao Yan's character, she had never been willing to forgive herself. She must be very upset that something like this had happened. She had always had a strong self-esteem. Ethereal was afraid that she would be unhappy, so he chose to end the awkward situation between them in a casual way. However, he was wrong. Chapter 346. If it was as he thought, she wouldn't have been unable to sleep all night. Qing Yenluo couldn't help but smile sarcastically at his words. Murongju, you're more heartless than I am. You were like this in the past, and you're still like this now. Every time someone panicked and didn't know what to do because of you, you would always be able to easily withdraw without a single drop of water. Murongju, I was just delirious at that time, but I didn't lose my memory. I just don't want to admit that I've almost let go of my hatred for you. But you're too disappointing. I'm so disappointed. I'll return it to you. Qing Yenluo pulled the cloak off her shoulder and threw it at him, then turned around and prepared to leave quickly. However, When she brushed past him, her hand was grabbed by a strong force, making it impossible for her to leave or break free. Murong-ju, what do you want? She lowered her voice and flew into a rage out of humiliation. She didn't want him to see her wishful thinking again. She had lost face once, and she didn't want to lose face again. At this moment, more than a dozen footsteps were heard coming in their direction. Unlike the heavy and orderly patrolling soldiers, Ethereal immediately stopped talking and let go of Cheng Yenlua's hand. He stuck close to the wall in front of him and paid attention. Sure enough, he saw more than a dozen figures appear outside the palace through the hollowed-out wall carvings. He immediately frowned. Xiao Yan, it seems that someone wants to harm Master. Go back to your room and protect yourself. Don't come out. Ethereal didn't look back as he instructed her, then quickly ran toward the main hall. While Ethereal was instructing her, Cheng Yenluo looked down at her wrist. When the warmth disappeared, she knew that she was going to be abandoned again. She suddenly understood the reason why she resented him for so many years. It was also the answer to the question she had been asking herself. It turned out that the problem between the two of them wasn't about who liked the other more, but which one of them was more important in his heart, her or him. However, the answer was that in his heart, his responsibility was more important than hers. It was the same last time, and it was the same this time. If he had put down his responsibilities and come back to look for her in these 6 years, he wouldn't have ended up like this today. Unfortunately, she curled her lips, but her tone was more self-deprecating. What could she do if she fell in love with such a man? Forget it, so be it. She tightened her grip on the cloak that he had draped over her body again and immediately headed towards the main hall. At this moment, she was already on the same boat as the little girl and the others. She couldn't just sit and wait for death. Actually, what she didn't want to admit was that the person she cared about was also among them. Ethereal quickly flashed into the main hall and saw the people who were seriously reviewing the information. Master, there are people coming. There are about 15 or 16 of them. I'm afraid they're almost at the door. Ethereal didn't stop and spoke quickly. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Xiao Su frowned slightly. Gentleman Sheng had promised him that there would be no guards inside the palace, but there would be a large number of guards outside to protect the entire palace. However, after listening to Ethereal's words, there were no sounds of fighting. This proved that there were no guards outside. That was why those people could enter the palace so easily. Turan and Hualing had already stood up and pulled out their weapons. To be able to have such authority in the palace, could it be? Chu Qingyan already had a guess. Xiao Su's expression immediately darkened. It seemed that he had also guessed it. As if to confirm their guesses, a sharp voice came from outside. Your Highness, this consort has come to bring you back to the palace. Just as the proud and confident voice fell, the person arrived. Junzi Mei appeared at the entrance of the palace in a beautiful red dress. She immediately saw Xiao Su standing in the crowd. She pursed her lips into a smile and leisurely walked over. Princess, I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to come so late at night. Please return. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. To be able to waste so much time talking to her at such a busy time was already very kind of big ice cube. Chu Qingyan looked at Junzi Mei, who had come with ill intentions, and was a bit angry. She didn't sleep in the middle of the night and came to disturb people. Only this brainless princess would do something like this. Your Highness, can you have these miscellaneous people withdraw? This consort has something to say to you. Junzi Mei didn't think that Xiao Su would treat her so coldly. She swept her eyes over the crowd and saw that there were so many people here. Her expression was a bit ugly as she spoke in disdain. There aren't any miscellaneous people here. Princess, if you have something to say, just say it. This prince is very busy. Xiao Su continued to flip through the information and didn't say anything else. He looked like he didn't want to pay attention to her. Chu Qingyan felt that if it weren't for the agreement he made with Jun Zisheng and giving Jun Zisheng face, Big Ice Cube probably would have directly told her to scram. Junzi Mei had been pampered since she was young. When had she ever been treated like this? She gritted her teeth and glared hatefully at Xiao Su. However, she knew that his personality had always been like this. She should get used to it, so she restrained the anger that was about to erupt and did her best to appear gentle. Your Highness, this time, Junzi Mei has a few things to say to Your Highness. The first thing is to apologize. This consort didn't know that the incense was poisoned. At that time, this consort only took some medicine from the estate's physician that could calm the nerves and induce sleep. Unexpectedly, that physician had ulterior motives and switched the medicine. This matter has nothing to do with Junzi Mei, but I still caused Your Highness to be frightened. It's Junzi Mei's fault. Junzi Mei looked like she was filled with self-blame and looked like she was about to cry. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This Junzi Mei's ability to turn right and wrong upside down was as strong as her brain damage value. That night, she dressed like that and tried to curry favor for no reason. Did she really think that they were easy to fool? Ethereal said that if it wasn't for the fact that the snake's kiss poison in Big Ice Cube's body was extremely domineering and couldn't coexist with other poisons, Big Ice Cube would have already been infected by the Dove of Joy. This Junzi Mei really was thick-skinned. The second thing is that Junzi Mei fell asleep last night. When I woke up this morning, I found out that Your Highness had been taken away by my imperial brother. Junzi Mei knew that Your Highness was also threatened by my imperial brother and had no choice but to do so. Thus, Junzi Mei took the risk of being punished by my imperial brother to enter the palace and bring Your Highness back. As soon as Junzi Mei finished speaking, Chu Qingyan burst into laughter. Junzi Mei felt like her dignity had been greatly challenged and she glared daggers at Chu Qingyan. Miss Chu, you seem to have a problem with this consort's words. Could it be that this consort has said something wrong? Junzi Mei threatened Chu Qingyan. She no longer had the coquettish attitude she had when speaking to Xiao Su earlier. This person really was like the weather in July, changing at will. No, it should be that she had two faces. Chu Qingyan originally didn't want to bother with this brain-damaged princess, but she couldn't swallow the fact that someone else was trying to invade her territory. She had the right to protect the integrity of her territory. It was necessary to defend her territory. Chapter 347. When Junzi Mei saw Chu Qingyan's half-smile, she immediately felt that this person was truly an eyesore. She wanted nothing more than to get rid of her. Chu Qingyan ignored her piercing glare and said with a mocking smile, Princess, we can let bygones be bygones for the first matter, but I'm afraid we can't agree to the second matter. You. Junzi Mei wanted to retort, what right do you have to make decisions for Xiao Su? But she was afraid that Xiao Su would say that she was exercising her duties as a princess, so she could only swallow her words. This consort wants to hear Your Highness's thoughts. She changed the topic to Xiao Su. Xiao Su didn't even raise his head when he heard this. Qingyan's words are this prince's thoughts. Junzi Mei was stunned, then said, Your Highness, are you really going to be so heartless to Zime? Xiao Su's fingers paused, then he calmly replied, if there's no love, how can there be heartless? Princess, you're thinking too much. Xiao Su, how can you say that? Zime has admired you for a long time. Junzi Mei bit her lip as tears streamed down her face. Right now, she couldn't care less about her princess bearing. She was just a young girl in love who couldn't obtain the love of her beloved. Many thanks. Xiao Su didn't feel any connection with her because she was a princess or because she was a woman. In his eyes, insignificant people weren't worth wasting his energy on. Just a single, many thanks and nothing else. Junzi Mei stared blankly at the person who was still sitting in front of her. She had fallen in love at first sight, been attached to after parting, and had missed him for 2 years. She was full of affection, but in the end, all she got was a single, many thanks from him. It was still a polite greeting without any emotion. She felt like she was going crazy. You have the right to admire someone, but this prince has the right to not accept. Xiao Su frowned slightly. This person was too noisy. He was about to order someone to chase her out. Junzi Mei felt deeply hurt when she heard this. She held on to an infatuated heart, but it was trampled on so wantonly. She couldn't swallow this anger. That was how love turned to hate. Xiao Su, you've gone too far. Junzi Mei was furious. Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan had a bad feeling. As expected, Junzi Mei waved her hand. Men, take him away. As soon as he finished speaking, more than a dozen guards outside immediately appeared and pointed their weapons at them. Turan, Huling, and the others also brandished their swords, and the scene suddenly reached a white-hot stage. Junmei, aren't you afraid of your imperial brother finding out that you're using force in the imperial palace? Chu Qingyan stepped forward and questioned. She didn't expect Junmei to be this crazy. Even if my imperial brother found out, he would only scold this consort. In his eyes, this consort is the younger sister he watched grow up, so of course this consort is more important than you outsiders. How could he side with outsiders? Junzi Mei felt like Chu Qingyan was simply joking, so she looked at her with disdain. Chu Qingyan felt like this person really didn't bring her brain with her when she went out. This wasn't a matter of deep sibling love, but rather, as a princess, she actually dared to openly lead troops into the imperial palace. This was already offending the authorities' reverse scale. No matter how much Junzi Xing cherished her, she would still bear a grudge because of her actions. Princess, it's late. You should go back. Chu Qingyan felt like this princess was brainless, but she was still a girl who had lost herself in love. She sighed. If she drew her sword, the one who would be injured in the end would only be herself. However, Junmei felt that Chu Qingyan was demonstrating her strength at this time, so she ordered, capture this stinky girl who doesn't know what's good for her. As soon as her voice fell, the soldiers didn't have time to make a move when they heard the sound of a heavy slap on the table. Junmei looked over and saw Xiao Su slamming the brush in his hand on the table. He looked at her coldly. People need face and trees need bark. Princess, is this prince not clear enough? If you dare to touch a single hair of this prince's people, this prince doesn't mind letting you taste the taste of Junlin's decline. It wasn't that easy to take back the military power of the vassal kings, but it was as easy as flipping one's hand to start a war between the vassal kings and the capital city. Junmei was startled. She wasn't startled by his words, but by his tone. Although he was cold, he had never been so ruthless to her. She didn't know that he had always been indifferent to people who didn't matter. Unless someone touched his reverse scale. Xiao Su, it's fine if you don't like me, because you don't understand me. As long as you give me time, I will definitely. Junmei was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. She didn't want him to hate her, so she changed from her arrogant and rude attitude to a submissive one. However, this made Xiao Su even more impatient. This prince doesn't want to see you again. Scram. Although the princess's ability to change her expression was amazing, Chu Qingyan didn't feel that there was anything to pity. Normal people would be dissatisfied with people who rashly intruded into other people's lives and tried to cause trouble. She didn't think that the ice cube was heartless. With his temperament, he had already given Junmei Xing a lot of face by waiting until now. In the ice cube's eyes, Junmei was just a walking piece of wood. He didn't care at all. If it weren't for Junmei Xing's face, Junmei would have been thrown out by now. Xiao Su, you. Fine, fine, fine. You're ruthless enough. Don't think that this prince will let you off just because of this. Men, arrest all of these people. Junmei's eyes were malevolent. She didn't look as beautiful as she did when they first met. She looked like a living witch. Chu Qingyan thought to herself, this is her true face. Just as the soldiers were about to step forward, a cold shout rang out. Junmei, what are you doing? Junmei's body trembled. Her imperial brother had arrived. She turned to look at the people who were entering the palace in a single file. She found her imperial brother's direction and ran over. The guilty party complained first. Imperial brother, these people actually dared to humiliate me. You have to help me vent my anger. Oh, no, other than Xiao Su, throw everyone else into prison. Junmei sobbed as she complained to her imperial brother. Junmei, have you caused enough trouble? Junmei Xing stood in the middle of the palace. Seeing his imperial sister sobbing so hard that she couldn't speak made him feel vexed. If he hadn't received a report from Xiao Su's subordinates, he didn't know what kind of trouble his imperial sister would have caused in the palace. Imperial brother, why did you? Junmei was so frightened that she forgot to cry. If this prince hadn't come, who knows what kind of trouble you would have caused? Junmei Xing said, exasperated. Imperial brother, please listen to your imperial sister's explanation. Before Junmei could finish, Junmei Xing interrupted her. Men, take the princess away. Detain the others, Junmei Xing ordered coldly. A large group of imperial guards immediately rushed forward. Thus, Junzi Mei was unwillingly dragged away. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.